Bit surprised to see the community vote so split, Parker. I mean, we just watched both of these teams play Clubhouse. Rebellion had a relatively confident win up against one of 30, and DarkZero got kind of smoked by SSG. This was the one map that they were unsuccessful on earlier in our show today. So I think that maybe difference in percentage just coming down to the fact that people do have a little bit more faith in this DarkZero roster. They've been a little bit more consistent this season, but Shopify Rebellion have certainly shown up when it matters the most. Repeating the map for both these teams here for the second time today. It's been a long day here in the North America League, but only one of these two teams can make it to Phase 2 of the Salt Lake City Major. The other team will have to battle it out in Phase 1. Full electricity bands, Ying and Ace, to round us out before we get into the first round.
Jesse, you and I were having a conversation when we watched the Rebellion versus 1 of 30 matchup, and you said something very interesting, and it's that roams have now changed and are very punishing if you are not well calculated on your roams because of Deimos, Dokkaebi, and Solid Snake being so oppressive to deal with. Roams, of course, changed when shields came out. If you recall, you could not roam as freely if you knew there would be a Blackbeard or, say, a Monty breathing down your neck at all times. But shields are a little bit on the way out at this point in time. They're not so hot anymore, man. That Solid Snake, he's real hot right now. And he and Deimos and Dokkaebi in particular have seen their pick rate surge. Obviously, for Solid Snake, nothing to surge because he's a brand new operator. But it is really punishing to try and roam. And when we were watching these teams, we noticed that they were being a bit more static with their defenses.
Yeah, I mean, you say shields are on the way out. Canadian certainly doesn't think so. And honestly, I don't think so either. I really do think that, like, shields are just another piece of the puzzle. Roam clearing right now in Siege is just easier than it's ever been before. So you do start to see some teams, especially on bomb sites like what we're witnessing right now on the bottom floor, I think rein things in a little bit, go for a bit more anchor-focused setups. Just as I'm saying that, though, as we're making this point, DarkZero are going for a very heavy roam, so I'm super interested to see what they want to do with this. I don't think it's a coincidence they brought Faults on the roam here, playing the mute Parker, and he's set up a lot of these jammers up towards the top floor. That is a good counter to the Solid Snake, to the Dokkaebis, the Deimos. I mean, it counters basically all of these intel operators that people love to roam clear with, so that might help tilt things back in favor of DarkZero, but it's definitely been difficult to try to lock down some of these solo players at times if you are one of these roamers kind of by yourself. Newers is the first one kind of coming into contact here towards the bottom of Garage. Uses this Kiba to block Canadian out of the building, but Spoit is the one who strikes first, finding Kino on the top floor.
That's everybody's favorite player that the chat was going bananas for. Part of the fun thing about not casting some of these matches and being able to watch live and not have to watch the VODs back means I get to ish post in Twitch chat with the viewers. And boy, oh boy, they love to talk about Spoit, Jesse. I don't know if you've heard of this guy, but I mean, he's a major winner, but he's got a lot of fans. He's got a lot of haters. It's crazy. That Twitch chat was going ballistic when he got a kill, and even more ballistic when he wasn't. Lots for them to talk about with this SR team. Spoit starting things off, and we are now a minute 30 through this round with very little other than that first bit of action.
Oh, another one. This one comes from Rex and Parker, just playing on these blue stairs, takes Newers down, just playing at the bottom here, and so that's going to be a massive 5v3 advantage. And again, Shopify Rebellion didn't overcommit to this roam clear. They didn't bring a Snake, they didn't bring a Dokkaebi. They've got a lot of good tools for the executes. Rexon, they're just feeding him the kills at this point. NJR tries to make an aggressive move, knows how desperate the situation is, but Richie is ready for it. Takes 80% damage, but he is still happy to take that frag. DarkZero, a very difficult first round coming down here now in the 2v5.
Rexon is retrievable. Crawling his way away. J9O's patience, hoping to net more than just one. Canadian dies at the hands of Jack. This is a much more winnable round now, Jesse. All jokes aside, J9O might have been able to buy his team some serious time as Fultz now has an opportunity. Looking to equalize, he misses that, so J9O will have to do even more. A third kill for J9O. Technically two, as the down had already happened. He just secured it. I think this is the point, though, where it's impossible because of the time.
No, he's got the kit, Parker. This is so doable.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I stand corrected. J9O still in this position. They've chased him off of this spot, trying to buy time. It's him versus Ambi, and Ambi wins the duel. My goodness, Beezy himself. He's got an eye-watering KD entering this matchup. Canadian's not going to be happy with that sloppiness. Ultimately, J9O could not get the job done. SR taking round number one.
If Canadian wants to be unhappy with the sloppiness, he's kind of got only himself to blame, Parker. Holding the defuse kit on the Monty and going solo to pick up Rexon is such a huge risk in that moment. When he makes that play, there's 45 seconds on the clock. They're in effectively a 5v2, assuming they can get Rexon up off the ground. They have positioning and time to play with. The only way they lose that round is if somehow they lose control of the defuse kit. Almost every other defender was inside the basement at that point. Canadian goes for the pickup by himself, pays dearly for it, and nearly cost his team the round. The second J90 got that frag, he knew how winnable it had just become. Was hitting some brilliant shots, but the magazine ended up being his demise. He did get the reload off, but it still was just so low. He switched back to the primary and didn't have the firepower to take down Ambi after killing nearly all of Shopify Rebellion. Nearly a critical error, but crisis is averted, and SR will go up 1-0.
A long best of 3, and SR is the team that chose this map. Again, expect some familiarity there for them as this DZ roster still tries to find its footing. DZ was one of 2 teams that emerged from the group stage undefeated. The other team, Five Fears, remains and will remain undefeated. The best team out of North America, the #1 seed from the NAL Kickoff, heading into the Salt Lake City Major. Coming up. It was a very, very impressive run by them, and I mean, I don't think anybody even had them making top 5, let alone being the best overall, but they managed to dance their way to the finals yesterday. And well, now you've got these 2 teams that just qualified earlier today. DarkZero dropped some maps on the way here. They ended up in the lower bracket, and there was a period of time where, with the space station matchup, Jesse, I actually think DarkZero could have lost that best of 3. It was quite a fall from grace. Now they're going to need to recover, though, and after round #1, there's some more recovery to do in this map as well.
And neither of these teams had easy rides to get here, Parker, but they both managed to make it to the major. Now we've got to figure out who's going to be in that phase 2. You saw earlier in this round some attempted mirror tricking going on from Fault. It didn't really work for him. He ended up just losing that mirror window without any real gain. So he'll only have the 1 to play with. I believe he set it up inside of Cash, so a little bit of a tough spot to be in from the mirror utility. Doesn't stop the guns, though. Steps up and takes down Surf on the rappel. That's a massive pick, and now J90 farming in the garage.
Is DZ on attack or defense here, Jesse? Because they managed to kill just about everybody on their own, taking these engagements. It's left Ambi now in a 1v3. We are halfway through this round, and DarkZero is poised to equalize. Really just comes down to what Ambi is able to do. Ambi's a great player, but clutching a 1v3 on a top floor bomb site where it looks like a lot of these avenues into the site are still closed off, and now he'll make his presence known on red stairs. I fear this is just a bit too much for him. Nitro Cell will go out, fire will prevent him, and now he scurries away.
3 death marks. If he can get a vert pick or something, Parker, it's very doable for him. Sees 1 head, but barely missing his shots. It's not an easy predicament, don't get me wrong, but if anyone could do it, it would be Bees.
DZ is giving him nothing, eh? They're actively trying to repel him from getting into this bomb site. There goes those Shamika launchers. Ambi just takes some damage all the way up. The fire at his feet. Toiling away, he manages to drop Kino. Almost had Fultz. 1 bullet, and he could have put it into a 1v1, but DZ will stick the landing. Not given an inch on those final moments. They'll tie things up on Clubhouse.
Yeah, nice try coming out from Ambi. I think a lot of the attention in that round, Parker, will come down to maybe the breach from Surf and the attempted mirror trick, maybe the Ambi 1v3, maybe even the garage clear. But one thing that Fett has been very keen to point out on Twitter has been how good the Tachanka play has been recently, specifically from NJR on this bomb site. He's able to, with the wall fully reinforced to rafters, shoot that fire over the wall, and you can just see how much ground he's able to cover. Some of that, of course, coming from Canadian on the Capitao, but a lot of it, especially towards the stairs, being tossed out by NJR to just empower J90 in that position, make it so difficult to take rafters control away from that player on DZ. So nice little util coming through. It won't be a surprise to Shopify Rebellion. DZ have been doing this quite a lot recently, but still not easy to handle. And the push in through garage, maybe not the main focus in that round, but probably the hardest thing that SR had to do and couldn't quite get accomplished in round number 2.
Just a total lockout there. How many bodies were buried inside of garage? 3? Was it? I think it was Newers playing in that position up top. They naded him. There was flames in that area, and he still managed to kill most people. That garage was an integral part of that execute for SR, and it did not ultimately materialize for them. They were stopped by DZ, shut down very effectively. Was the word that I kept using yesterday: stifling, suffocating, smothering. All of those words could be very applicable here for what we saw to DZ in round number 2. A new day though now, and the bomb site will move over to the other side of the top floor, and history will repeat itself. That is Surf dying from the exact same spot outside by garage, and SR will be down yet again. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's a miserable position to play. Surf unlucky with it twice now on the thermite. Newers gets his first kill with a different run out, but you're always so exposed up on this platform wall. They don't have any more hard breach, Parker, so while they can counter these mirror windows very nicely, I don't know if it's gonna matter much. You didn't bring can openers on any of these operators, so there's really no way for you to get the walls open and be a freebie trying to open the hatch. He finds J9O, who's just tucked inside a gym. Hits himself with a wow, because he knows that's a little bit of a lucky kill, but he will take it. They're gonna need all the help they can get, Parker, without that hard breacher alive, but Spoit adds on, and it's a man advantage for Shopify Rebellion.
This is great for this SR team. Spoit especially being able to pick things up. He entered the day. This is excluding the series stats that just concluded. I know you have your numbers, so you can weigh in here, but Spoit entered the day with one of the lowest EPSs out of any of the teams that still remained in the playoffs, and he is a -10 before the best of 3. Again, that was just played, so he's looking to improve those numbers. On his role, there isn't a ton of growth because he's not usually the go-to guy, but so far, he's been doing okay here on Clubhouse.
Yeah, enters this BO3 at a -3 differential on KD, so +1 at the moment. That's -2 overall. We'll see if he can get into the positives on his final game before heading off to Salt Lake City. Bolt in a critical spot, loses the duel to Willie, and that's going to be now a 2-man lead for the Rebellion.
NJR managing to take down Canadian. Logi was a bit of an issue against 1 of 30 for this SR team, but they managed to bail themselves out of that position because Spoit finds 2 very fast kills. He's in a positive KD now. Jesse, what did you say? He was -2?
He was -3, so that's even.
Perfect. Numbers not so difficult for Spoit this time around. Ambi, Rexon, and Spoit still standing for SR, just up against Kino. Kino held off the score sheet over the last 2 rounds. He was not a huge factor in their victory previous round. Still 2 assists to his name, now chased off by that death mark, so Ambi will call for the team while the other 2 players from SR look to take map control. Rexon getting diffuse kit down, and there's Kino embracing these attackers, pushing up with the shotgun out. Down goes Ambi, Rexon pulls it off. Kino almost gets more, but Spoit shuts it down. A 4K for the Swede, and SR regain the lead.
Huge round. Now he's positive on the season. Parker, Spoit, a fantastic round to clutch things up, and what should not have really even been in the cards for Shopify Rebellion. They lose their one and only hard breacher, Surf, within seconds of the round starting. He doesn't get to open Jacuzzi, doesn't get to open Con Single, doesn't get to open CC Wall. Whatever he thought he was going to open that round, he got nothing of it thanks to Newers. But Spoit comes in for the late trade, takes down the robot operator from Newers, finds 3 more kills then, clearing over from cash side. That is a very difficult round for Shopify Rebellion to win, but they had the better guns. They were finding the angles they needed to, and Willie did not miss. Causes attack timeout from DarkZero here after only going down 2-1 on this first map.
Yeah, I'm a little confused at how early this is, but I guess it does keep up with the trend line that we've been seeing of teams calling their timeouts so fast.
Yeah.
A big part of it is it does also align with the operator bans. So if you call your operator bans or the operator ban rolls in, or you call the timeout the round before that, then you can see if that has some immediate effect or plan for the next round should that last operator ban come in. Yes. All of the operator bans at this point are locked in, so that's not why they're doing it, but this call-out team, or call-out and the rest of his team, will use this as an opportunity to talk through the problems. And frankly, they're a little hard to diagnose because I think the issues with DZ have been very different in all 3 of the rounds. There were some issues on that second round, but not an awful lot. And again, they had such a good start because Surf got killed. The fact that they were able to take out the hard breacher the way that they were so quickly should have bought DarkZero those rounds, and ultimately the mid round fell apart for them.
Yeah, well, I think you go back to 1 and 3, the 2 rounds they lost, and there were a lot of untraded deaths with players kind of solo around the map. In the first round, it was this bottom floor roam, and the roam clear was quite good for Shopify Rebellion, even if it almost fell apart. In that previous round, while it starts good for DZ, it ends up not really coming together as they lose a lot of other kind of isolated picks, that time mostly to Sploit. We'll leave it into the capable hands of Callout. We actually have a very interesting coach duel coming in here, Parker, because it's Callout versus Super, Seth versus Seth, and two people who just got named to the coaching staff of Team USA for the Esports Nation Cup. They'll be coaching alongside Fabian later on this year when we get to that regional competition, that national competition. Very excited to see kind of how those 3 coaches mesh on one team. It'll be scary for any coaching staff to go up against, but for now they remain entities here on Clubhouse.
Loading new mag.
Of course, nothing more American than a Swede captaining your, coaching your team, of course.
Yes, of course, of course.
I was curious how they arrived at this. It was like I saw like Kendrew is coaching the Tunisian team. I was like, I don't even know if there's any pro-Tunisian players. I was looking at some of these teams in some of these countries and just thinking to myself, like, I know that ENC is long and there's going to be a lot of teams competing, and we can probably predict which regions are going to make the deep runs here, but I saw some of the countries and I was like, what is going to happen? Like we have the most famous Canadian player playing in this matchup, and besides him and Spirits and maybe Foxy coming out of retirement, I don't really know who else goes on that team. Who's going to be playing for Tunisia? That's the question here.
Another mag.
Not a question to be answered by us, Parker, and not much going to be answered by me. As it seems my feed has frozen, so
mine is completely dead. It has died.
Well, then I guess we can yap about the Tunisian Rainbow Six team. No pro players, no tier 1 players, certainly going to be on that roster, but yeah, it'll be fun to find out who ends up on that squad. I know the coaches do not actually have to be from the nation they are representing, much like in many traditional sports. But of course, the players will all be representing their home countries, and it should be a very exciting event later on this year. We've also seen some great kind of coach collaborations happening in South America. I know both in South America, we got a dual coaching setup coming out from both Igor and, of course, head coach of FaZe Clan coming through, Rafadel. So it's going to be fun to see kind of those two coaches work together.
Wild.
Yeah, bring that Brazilian super team together.
The feed is back now for me, Jesse, which is terrific. We've got 25 seconds left. Everybody's still alive until SR drops into the bomb site and they all start dying. Braxton and Ambi looking for the coverage. Now Kino will fall. 1 kill for DZ. Numbers still tied. Surf looking for the defuse kit. That means Ambi will be the only one to cover, but BZ's getting the job done. It's pushed Fultz back. He'll take down Ambi with a great shot, and now Surf and Fultz will stare each other down in a 1v1. Fultz inside a church. Semi-newly religious man. He'll have to do some praying here as Ian Surf with the sidearms out. Bearing 9 versus SMG 11. Fultz has access to a shotgun if need be. Right now just trying to buy time, getting ever closer, and he'll win the duel. Surf did not have the read on it. Fultz with the final kill. He'll hop on the case, and we are tied yet again.
Brilliantly done by the captain of DarkZero, Fultz, just qualifying now for his 10th major, a massive accomplishment to come through from him, playing against Canadian, also now qualified to his 10th major event, I should say. Both of these players going to Salt Lake City, but it's Fultz today who gets the better in that 1v1. Nice for them to be able to lock down that bottom floor defense, Parker. It's the bomb site that they were struggling with back during the very first round here on Clubhouse. I'd love to give you more analysis than that. Looks like it was going in through the church, or through the kitchen hatch. They had a nice little send set up, but I did miss the majority of that round due to some tech issues, so I can't say much more than that. In the end, though, the guns seem to be just a little bit better for DZ, despite that triple from Ambi. Shopify Rebellion have had to rely a lot on Ambi so far this season. Coming into this game, Ambi sits at a plus 32 kill differential, while every other player entered this match negative. So you kind of expect Ambi to be the one to show up, but in that previous round, not quite enough despite the triple.
really good individual performances here, and you can look down at the numbers on your screen. J9O, most of his kills occurring in that very first round where he ended up in a 1v1 showdown against Ambi. Ambi persevered there. DZ get their 1v1 back in the round that just transpired, as that was Fultz who beat Surf. Round before that, it was Spoit taking no prisoners. So everybody here getting active. A couple of the usual suspects are not getting kills, which again is to be expected. Kino yet to strike. Canadian with just a single kill so far, but again, we will keep an eye on them and on their roles, because as of right now, it's not incredibly detrimental that they are not racking up kills. And remember when I was talking about Twitch chat, talking about Spoit an awful lot in the last matchup? The amount of people, they're just... Allow me to impart just a tiny bit of knowledge here on the average viewer. If you are here because you like a content creator, it would behoove you to learn the game. When a player like Canadian is going negative, but the rest of his team is fragging out, usually that means Canadian is doing his job. You don't want Canadian to get a lot of kills, because that means the fraggers on the team are not doing their job properly. So if you're one of those people, I love calling Canadian comedian, don't get me wrong. I razz him all the time. But if you see Canadian go, say, like 2-7, depending on the circumstances, that might actually be pretty normal for the way that Shopify Rebellion plays this game.
Parker, the Monty main is 1 kill. I think Spoit should drop in.
Spoit, of course, running this team, right?
Yes.
Fultz now on the flank. He cannot outduel Spoit. Spoit's team, you talked about it. Potential refrag now from Rex, and action breaking out all over this map. 4 players in the ground, 2 apiece, and we hit the halfway point of the round. Both of these teams tied.
Canadian did end up going down, actually walking up towards Raptors. A bit of an ill-advised kill, dying to J9O, playing in that position. Again, this Tachanka setup is so difficult to try to get past. Thankfully, Rexton will get that space, but even now that they've cleared out Raptors, they can't really breach the wall, because NJR can just keep throwing those fire grenades right up onto where they want to breach it. Not that they have any more hard breach anyways, I suppose, with Surf being all out of those X-Kairos, but it still just makes things very awkward trying to push in through the garage side of this map. That's why Rexton has to give it up. Sure, you've cleared the defense side of it, but now what does this push look like? It's sending 2 players up red? This does not feel good with 40 seconds left.
No, not whatsoever. Spoit will attempt to flash, as now this defense will stare down this red execute, and that's a great spot for Newers to be in. He's not expecting a second. Surf gets 1, almost gets NJR2, who now repositions. Surf has not really been able to do much the last couple rounds because he kept getting picked off early. He had an opportunity there. He does not ultimately succeed. Beyond just a single kill, there's nothing else that Surf can muster, and DZ will take the lead.
Yeah, Red Stairs really the story of that round, Parker. It starts right at the beginning with Newers getting the opening pick onto Ambi, who was trying to clear him up from kind of down below inside of Lounge. Fultz was flanking up those secret stairs as well, so you had really a lot of different players on DarkZero focused over towards Red, and it kind of got them that early man advantage that they were hoping to achieve starting there on the defense top floor. Raptors definitely went the way of the Rebellion, don't get me wrong. Despite Canadian's death, they got that good space, but not being able to do anything with it because you couldn't breach the wall because the Tachanka was spamming fire through it. It forced this push to be really awkward. Frankly, the only advantage to setting 2 players up red is that it's such a bad place to push that nobody expects 2 bodies to walk up that direction. So Surf gets a freebie from it in that case, in that sense, but beyond that, not really a successful push in the 3v3. Positioning advantage is so much stronger from DarkZero. Raptors wall being closed and the main breach just not being an easy place to walk through either.
Not one bit. And again, Tachanka, the operator that you gave credit to and then referenced the Fetco stream and how he's been posting an awful lot about Tachanka lineups. Honestly, it's great content. There's a lot of people co-streaming these matches, and the content that has come from it is terrific. Rainbow Six really could benefit from more supplementary stuff, whether it be on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. There is a very large Rainbow Six Siege community on TikTok. It catches you off guard, and if you're not a big TikToker, you might not know exactly what's out there, but the game does quite well on that platform. One of my first experiences with TikTok on Siege was Titanium Rolo, who's done a fantastic job covering the more casual aspects of the game, particularly the Easter egg hunts, and she's now branched out to a bunch of other stuff and is finding a great deal of success. So I mean, if you do watch TikTok, and Jesse, I know you spend most of your life on TikTok. You download TikToks before you go on the plane so that you can watch them, which I think is deranged behavior. But alas, if you do go on TikTok and you like Rainbow Six, seek out some of these content creators because there's good stuff out there to watch.
In my defense, YouTube Premium does that automatically. It's not like I chose to do that on purpose. But anyways.
Last is paying you really well, Mr. YouTube Premium.
Nurs goes 1 for 1 on the opening, takes down Ambi. That's been a duel happening all game long, and so far it has been Nurs barely getting the better of Ambi, but both of them finding some good success throughout this matchup. Results in a 4v4 for this gym push with about 90 seconds left here on the clock. I like the control that Shopify Rebellion have achieved. They've gotten this cache control, which allows them to play the highway windows a lot safer than they otherwise would, but they're still really good utility in the site. Kiba barriers and castle barricades keep things nice and tight, and then with both NJR and Kino on these plant denial operators, it's going to be really tough to go for an objective-focused execute. The best look for SR might just be trying to rush in, play on these windows, and get yourself some picks, but easier said than done when you're looking at those very strong gunners on the side of DZ.
I mean, Ambi's come back down to earth a little bit over the last few rounds, so if you make it to a major, typically you're going to have some depth on your team.
Come on, hybrid.
5 years is still kind of the odd one out, at least in my eyes, because they're still a new-ish team, but there's still depth on that team as well. On Rebellion and DarkZero, you bet your ass there's some depth here. And there'll need to be some. On the side of Rebellion is Rexon and Spoit are suddenly the last 2 alive. 30 seconds remain, and DZ have a lead by 1 player. We both thought it was gonna. We both thought that might have gone the other way.
I don't know about that. Maybe. Faults. Put in the work in the end round, Parker. Really dominating towards the end of those defenses. Puts in just enough as well to get up to, I believe, 9 frags at the end there. And goes up now 4-2 on the leaderboard here. Up against Shopify Rebellion. DarkZero in a dominating position after the first 6. Let's see what our desk has to say about the start of this game.
Well, thanks, guys. This one's been an interesting start. Laxing, anything jump out to you so far?
The defensive half from the side of DarkZero, what I've really liked is their operator choices is really to stall out the side of SR. They know that SR can turn up on any single point. I mean, this first round was crazy, to say the least, for J9 not to be able to clutch it out. But no, I really like the defenses. They're playing a lot of stall. They have the Tachanka, they have the castle, they have the Azamis, they have the Akiba barriers, they're playing the tuber route. I mean, it really is to stall out SR. So once all that utility is used up, whether it's on the side of SR or it's on the side of DZ, you're playing into that defense, and that's always going to be significantly easier, as I've talked about. Once you've expunged all your utility on both sides, defense is always going to be in the favorable position, because there's nothing left for the attackers to do outside of trying to get into the site, trying to play a trade game. But that's where DZ is just putting the clamps on them every single time.
Yeah, I really want to commend Fultz for his performance. I feel like he's been so consistent since joining this team, but specifically in Kickoff. I mean, his big 1v1 clutch when it came on round 4, it was really good for him to be able to close that out, for him to be alive. He's been such a good backbone for this team on defense when he's playing that smoke. I mean, they really are looking good. As for SR, though, I will say, with the quality of the opponent that they're going up against, the attacks that they have won, that clutch that they lost to Fultz, that could have been a 1 round and made it 3-3, they are still performing very well when it comes to their attacks. I feel like it's just DZ at the end of the day.
Do you disagree?
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I also just want to quickly mention, I mean, 5 out of the 6 opening kills are going in DZ's favor once again, so it speaks into how well they're controlling that aggression and delaying all of SR to a point where they have to go for something and they lose bodies almost immediately.
Yeah, SR's having a big issue when it comes to the opening kills. Not something that I mean, they were having difficulty, you know, again, in their 1 of 30 match as well when it came to that. It's something that seems to be plaguing them when it comes to their entry. It feels like if Ambi can't find that opening kill, the rest of them aren't able to. So maybe it's something to take and they look at going into map 2. But when it comes to their defensive half, I'm imagining with the way that DZ was playing with their setups, you know, all of their top floor holds and the way that they add so many layers of utility to go through, you have to imagine that their attacks are going to be one and the same. Capitao, Grim, Ying, utility-based operators. SR needs to target those operators out right out of the gate and focus on bringing more traps to be able to deny DarkZero so that they can't get their own entries.
I feel like we talked so much about J9O during the group stage. You know, he was, and I think still is, the #1 rated player in all of Kickoff right now. But Fultz, over the course of the last few days, has been playing lights out through the first couple of rounds. 9 kills already to his name. Have you seen anything from Fultz you've really liked in particular?
I mean, it's just his flexibility. That's been the biggest thing with this new addition to this roster of Kino and NJR is he doesn't have to solely fixate on a supportive style. He can switch it up at any given moment. It's really what the attack needs, essentially. And the fact that he's able to do that now is the reason why we're able to see him flourish again and actually see him on the scoreboard, where we heard Parker talking about if you see Troy going 2-7, that typically is the standard because that means everyone is doing their job. And if Troy is up there getting big numbers, that's a big red flag. And now on the side of Fultz, if you were seeing Fultz get a lot of kills back then, maybe there's, maybe give and take in some areas, but in this new role that he can play, he can be at the top of the leaderboard while also leading his team.
And that is the beauty of DarkZero. There's so many good players on this team that finally have a place to shine. I mean, we've talked about J9O, we've talked about Kino, NJR, Fultz. These players on their previous teams always had to get the short end of the stick, had to pick up a role that they didn't necessarily have the most success with to let the other players flourish. And now everybody is so comfortable in their position that players like Fultz, players that we haven't really had a chance to talk about in previous years, now are the main talking points for DarkZero.
All right, 4-2 at the half. We see if Shopify Rebellion can quickly make up that ground as we move into the second half of Clubhouse. Jesse, Parker, back to you.
Thank you very much. Always a flattering feeling when the analysts back up the things that we say, me in particular, because you're the analyst on this duo. You're the color caster. You're the one who's supposed to be filling in the picture with your knowledge. I'm the broad strokes guy. I'm the play-by-play guy. I'm the one drawing the big, thick lines. So if I'm the one doing the little details and getting that right, I'm fist bumping here at my desk. We're just undergoing a bit of a rehost at the moment at the halfway point. So we'll get everybody back in the lobby as quickly as possible. I think they're already starting to file in here, Jesse. But while we're here, why don't you recap the stakes of this match?
Yeah, that's right, Parker. Coming into this game, of course, both of these teams have already qualified to the Salt Lake City Major, so they don't need to worry about that, but we still don't know where exactly they're going to be in the Salt Lake City Major. The format for our majors this year, especially for this first one, is that you've got 8 teams starting in Phase 1. The rest of the teams start in Phase 2. And only the winner of this match gets to start in Phase 2. So our upper bracket teams that qualified 5 tiers and wildcard, they'll be in Phase 2 no matter what. The top 3 teams from Europe, the top 3 teams from South America, and some of the APAC and Chinese teams, they'll be in Phase 2 to start. But some of those other teams, including the loser of this game, will have to start in Phase 1, which means they could be going out very early at the Salt Lake City Major if they're not able to win against some of, again, the top teams from around the world. Even if they are some of the weaker teams going to the major, they're still some of the best teams in the world. So you don't want to have to be fighting in a spot like that. That means including the difference between 3rd and 4th in the NAL and the difference between 20th and 16th in the major. There's about 135 SI points on the line at least 1,000 USD. So plenty to play for in this matchup between DarkZero and Shopify Rebellion.
There's always a lot on the line when you get into the later days of these matches, and especially in Kickoff here. For people that are curious, this Kickoff event is not actually part of Stage 1. This event exists solely for teams to qualify for the Salt Lake City Major, and of course pick up SI points and all of that in the process. North America is a bit behind the times when it comes to qualifications, but now we know all 4 of the teams that have made it. APAC and China are still in the process of doing their Kickoff matches. So those are still to come.
10 seconds left
APAC
before
North
insertion.
will be playing in about 3-ish hours if you're watching this, just a little bit over 3 hours. Asia, the region, will be playing in just a little bit over a day, and then Oceania is still 2 days away. China will also be playing in 4 hours, but as far as I'm aware, there's no English language official rebroadcast.
It varies. There are ways to watch it in English on Twitch.
No. I mean, we are not. There's nothing
No
with
blast
us.
broadcast.
Yes,
No.
exactly.
I'm not casting it.
Well, I hope
But
not,
in
because it's going to be starting the moment that this ends, and something Edmonton Oilers. I don't know what if
They're not
you're watching
playing
hockey,
tonight.
but both Europe and South America, or EML and SAL, have already sent their teams. G2, Team Falcons, Twisted Minds, and Virtus Pro from the EML, and then from SAL, it's 4 Brazilian teams, and FaZe Clan, Furia, Los, and Ninjas in Pajamas. There are some big names missing from all 3 of the regions that have qualified every team so far. It is crazy to think of that, but that's what parity is, right, Jesse? When all of these teams are so evenly balanced and you've got 5 or 6 good teams, guess what? A couple of them are ultimately just not going to make it based on the numbers. It's a missed opportunity from J90 now as we're 1 minute into this round. He saw 2 bodies over on blue, but the Azami of Ambi will stop those bullets, and they both manage to get away. As now Spoit creeps up to the end of Dirt Tunnel and could have a very cheeky kill on his hands.
Nobody in kitchen directly yet, so we won't be too worried about it, but certainly this roam game has fallen off on the side of Shopify Rebellion. I like that from them. They showed a little bit of a presence, but it wasn't really a hard commit, and they used those Kivas to get back to site nice and safely. So good space from DarkZero taken quite early. They've got a relatively open site for them now to try to work onto this push. The smoke grenades come out though, and they're just sending it. 1:20 still on the clock.
And in the middle of the smoke, Kino trying to see all Surf the first casualty. Surf's been dying really early in a lot of these rounds and not having as much impact as I'm sure he and SR would want. Down goes Kino at the hands of Canadian, so the old man can still fry. Canadian losing a lot of HP in the process, but still with gun in hand. Because of this pace, Jesse, there's still a minute to go with 8 players alive.
Yeah, and it looks like they're rotating off. I think with Kino dead, they're not liking this like hallway focus push that they had going for them. False is going to move his way over. It looks like maybe to blue to help J90 out. That's where he got that opening pick onto Surf, just placing that player, facing that player inside of the bomb sites. Newers will get a vert pick onto Canadian, and this must be really annoying to defend against Parker because it looked like a rush down main stairs, and now they're backing off and taking completely different positions. You don't know where to look.
No, and I mean, you need to be really flexible. If you're this SR team, you're outnumbered now. The advance from DZ, spread out, but all over towards blue. Spoit blinded out. The crossfire will gun folds down. That's the shield in the ground. J90 gets one before Spoit trades him out. Rexon and Spoit, the last 2 for SR versus Newers and NJR. NJR holding that defuse kit. They've swapped over as to who's got control of what. A bomb chassis very much in favor of NJR at the moment. He gets Spoit, and Newers will also get his target. Another big round from DarkZero.
You know, I think this is really one of the most underrated strengths of this DZ team, Parker. It's how they're able to pivot their push. You don't see this from teams very often, but I remember this exact same scenario happening yesterday against Wildcard on Chalet, where DarkZero kind of show one push. They show where they're going to be entering the map, entering the bomb site. They give one look to the defenders, and then everybody in the defense reacts. They think, okay, they're coming in through main stairs. There's a push over towards blue. Like, this is what we have to watch out for. And then on a dime, DZ just switch up. They pull things back. They reposition all of their players. They end up playing vert inside of kitchen in the middle of what feels like the push. They rotate a lot of players over blue side where before it was just J90. And it ends up being a really dynamic push where the defense just don't really know where to look. They're so caught off guard by that movement, by that rotation, that it just becomes really oppressive to play under. And I think it's probably the best thing that DZ do on these attacks. It's been consistent throughout this kickoff, and it's really tough to pull off. But with a great IGL like False leading the charge, DarkZero have been very good at it throughout kickoff, and they've earned themselves now a 5-2 advantage on their opponent's map pick.
Yeah, this is where stuff gets a little bit scary for DZ. The timeout for DZ worked quite well. And I mean, if you watch both of the series today, there were very evident weaknesses from DarkZero and from the Rebellion, right? 1 of 30, pushing Rebellion to the brink. A very improbable map 2 comeback where 6 consecutive rounds won by 1 of 30 is what ultimately catapulted that series to a 3rd map that, to be fair, Rebellion didn't really ever look like they were in jeopardy on. And then DarkZero, well, there was a period of time where it looked like Space Station had their number. 3 of these players on DZ left that SSG roster, including their coach. A call out. How poetic would it have been if that SSG roster had ultimately qualified over them? But DZ ended up sticking the landing, as did the Rebellion. Now both of them are here, but because of this, neither of them have looked totally confident today. DarkZero just seems to be making fewer mistakes at this point in time.
Great post by Call It on Twitter talking about the assembly of this roster, but never mind because False is in the bomb site killing everyone. 2 players down, a 3rd from J90. Canadian and Surf all of a sudden, with almost 2 full minutes on the clock, are being pulled apart. A 2nd from J90. Where did the round go, Parker? Surf's in a 1v5.
This is the same tempo that was set by DarkZero in the previous round, right? Everything was really, really quick. Down goes Surf, a flawless end by DZ. They move to map point. They are banging on all cylinders right here.
Yeah, and again, it just comes down to how hard they are to read. Like, this push coming out from DarkZero consistently is catching Shopify Rebellion off guard. They don't know what's coming for them, just depending on what gets opened up, depending on where the angles are. They think they know where players are at, but it's just so difficult to predict where that pinch will actually come from. And that time, it's just Fault pushing in through Logi, now on match point, facing 4 consecutive opportunities to close out their opponent's pick. Shopify Rebellion will have to call their attack timeout. DarkZero are looking so good in this game. 2 out of 2 attacks, just beautifully crafted, beautifully executed. And if I can finish my point that was interrupted by Fault's excellent play, Callout had a really impressive tweet after qualifying at the Salt Lake City Major, where he talked about the departure of Ashen and of course Benja to different rosters coming into this new season, how they had to find a new home here on DarkZero, how they had to rebuild, adding these pieces of both, of course, NJR and Kino to the lineup. And I don't know, it really is a great story from DarkZero. SSG felt like it was going to be their permanent home for these players. I mean, they've been there for so long, especially with Fault becoming a world champion on SSG, but this new look for DarkZero, man, it's very, very promising. And I know they're not in the upper bracket finals right now, but I still feel like this team has potential to go very deep at the major.
Looks like we're going to have another rehost now as Shopify Rebellion call out a sound bug there. Kind of humorous that it's Rexon who's calling it, because as people know, and somebody in chat actually mentioned it, and I was like, good ball knowledge here. Rexon is actually completely deaf in one of his ears. So
yes,
yeah. So it's I do obviously spend an awful lot of time with Troy at live events, providing he doesn't go deep into the event, and usually Rexon will accompany us. And the amount of times where Rexon has to move over because he just can't hear you in his ears if he's walking next to you, it's crazy. And obviously that will impact your ability to play in this game. Rexon has had pretty good numbers. He's unfortunately at the moment, he's underwater. Spoit is top fragging on Shopify Rebellion so far in this matchup, but it's Fultz and J9O running away with it. These guys are just like chocolate and vanilla, always together, no matter what. And Fultz sitting at 11-4 right now. J9O at 11-6. J9O through most of Kickoff, and after all of these matches have been played today, my numbers are not as accurate as yours, so you're welcome to dive in here and correct me. J9O has been at the very top of the NAL standings with EPS and rating basically since the first day. I don't know if that's changed now that the 2 best-of-3s have been concluded and we're in a third, but he's been terrific. J9O is just having such a good, I want to say stage, even though it's not, so we'll say stage. But man, J9O has looked magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, he has fallen a little bit. Obviously, that last series was a really tough one for DarkZero, and you compare that to the early part of the season where they were dominating everybody undefeated. Of course, those stats are going to fall, but still a top 10 player here in the league coming into this best-of-3. Ambi actually with a top spot coming into this matchup with 124 EPS average throughout his last couple of games. Aiden actually sitting in second place, which is really impressive from him, the young, not quite rookie, but still young new player for Space Station Gaming, who has turned a lot of heads despite some of the disappointment I'm sure he was feeling today after their game versus DarkZero. Gavin, kind of a similar spot, not a new player by any means, but third rated here by EPS in the league, still failing to qualify for the major. Of course, big disappointment. And then you start getting to the heavy hitters that'll be going to Salt Lake City. Snake and Rival 4th and 5th, Newers and J9O 6th and 7th. So some real big names that are going to be headed to the major, and some new names too, right? I mean, we've never seen Rival international event before. It could be very fun to see how he fares against the best of the best.
Yo, absolutely. And it's going to be a great experience for these younger players. There's been a huge amount of upheaval with the rosters across all of the regions. There's no real region that's been hit more than the other, though it does seem like North America has an overwhelming amount of youngsters and rookies. It's really healthy for the league, if I'm being honest here, Jesse.
Yeah.
Having new blood come in and have new talent come in, they're going to bring a different set of eyes. They're going to bring a different way to play. You know, there's been a lot of arguments made about the way that Siege is played these days. And one of the players whose system repeatedly comes under criticism is Canadian, who's playing in this match, especially involving Spoit, the guy on your screen right now. After the disappointing results that the Shopify Rebellion had at the 6 Invitational, one that just happened in Paris a couple months ago, there was no shortage of ink spilt talking about Spoit's role on this team and Canadian's system. And, you know, you talk to some people and they say that Canadian likes to play a far more structured style of Siege. It's a little bit too firm, I guess you could, is a word you could use here. Whereas a lot of other teams are a bit more free flowing. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad. It just might not be where the meta is at the moment. And I mean, he just qualified for his 10th major, Jesse, as you actually tweeted about earlier today. So clearly the system is not terrible. It hasn't been enough to get Shopify Rebellion onto the main stage or over the hump, but it's certainly getting them to events. So
yeah,
these new players, they're going to bring different ways to play. Maybe some of them will be more structured. Some of them maybe be a bit more chaotic.
Mm-hmm. I think it comes down to, when you talk about Shopify Rebellion being very rigid, maybe structured. When they're good, they're great. I mean, you look at some of the executes the Shopify Rebellion have played, especially through these last couple of days in playoffs, and you just think, wow, like that was incredible. There was a Raura execute on the top floor of Lair that they pulled out, I think a day ago. They all kind of blur together with these playoffs have been kind of crazy. But, you know, there's some pushes that come through from Shopify Rebellion that just look absolutely incredible when all the pieces of the puzzle line up the way they're supposed to. It's clear the depth of strategy on this team and the skill on this team is absolutely insane. But I do think, yeah, you know, sometimes things get a little bit messy. Sometimes things don't go perfectly according to plan, and that can be sometimes where Shopify Rebellion fall apart a little bit. That's sometimes where teams like 5 Fears or SSG can find a lot of thriving because they like to make things messy. They like to get active. They like to run at you on defense and cause chaos in your attacking strategies. So different ways to play this game, no doubt. At the end of the day, both styles can get you to a major. Both styles can find you success. Really just comes down to what the team wants to play with and how things are going to look at the end of the day. But I think that the broad kind of conclusion of the story, Parker, is that the future is very bright for North America. You know, with all these young players finding success, especially here in this season in Kickoff, I think we've got a really good outlook onto the seasons to come and to the international events over the next couple of years. I think this NA team and the NA squads that we've got will be playing pretty well. I think they can put up some really nice, impressive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got some of the old guard. It's crazy to think that this DZ team is now part of that old guard. You've got your oldest guard known to mankind, which is your guys like Canadian, who've been, you know, around since this game basically started. Most of his teammates and people who played against him have since retired. But then you've got guys like Fultz, who's been playing now quite steadily for over half a decade. I remember when Fultz made his debut. I remember when Newers made his debut. I remember when NJR made his debut. And now these guys are the ones who are experienced. They're the veteran presence on teams, and they are now using their experience as a learning opportunity for the younger players. Now, DZ doesn't really have any youngsters on the squad. They're all relatively the same experience level and same age. Mm-hmm. But then you've got players on the side of SR, like Surf. Surf and Ambi both still relatively green when it comes to international experience. They're just starting to stretch their legs. Ambi is now getting an opportunity to IGL on defense, helping with SR's calls. And you best know that a guy like Canadian, a coach like Super, even somebody like Spoit, who now himself is starting to get up there in years, winning a major all the way back in, what was it, 2022, 2023? I believe it was 2022 where he won the major, that they're able to use their experience to help other players grow. And when you look at guys like Surf and Ambi, I think it is very fair to say that having Super and having Canadian on this team has allowed them to flourish. And when you look at a team like 5 Fears, Forrest is the one that's going to be giving all the experience to the rest of that roster, and Snake will be to an extent as well. So lots of learning opportunities here for the younger players, and it'll be fascinating to see how all of these different styles and levels of experience mesh and go up against each other in Salt Lake City.
Well, folks, we do appreciate your patience. Hopefully, we've waited all that time so that Shopify Rebellion can mount a thrilling comeback and give us a full 15-round series here to start things off on Clubhouse. DarkZero will do everything in their power to make sure that that doesn't happen and that the rest of this map finishes faster than the rehost went through. We have got everybody back in the lobby and everything working, both the youngsters and the experienced veterans. So hopefully we can see this game continue without any real issues.
coming again once more, DarkZero have been dominating on these attacks. They had a 4-2 defense split, now have been very coordinated on these pushes, faking out their opponents, catching Shopify Rebellion off guard, multiple different ways of pulling that off. I'm hoping we see a bit more from SR in the early game, Parker. Sometimes if you're getting caught off guard by these pushes, the best response is just to get aggressive, get in their face, to work the opening pick back into your advantage. The entries have been heavily favoring DZ this game. Shopify Rebellion need to get one back.
Yeah, I mean, time's running out. DZ get to go up to their map, and they might do so in a bit of a hurry. I know it's been quite a long day so far, just because of how these best of threes have gone. They've all been quite lengthy affairs, but this DZ team is trying to make up for lost time. Now, granted, both of these teams have in the past had experiences with dropping rounds that they probably should have won. Some could even say that's happened in this actual matchup itself. So now it's really on DarkZero to not bottle it. There's very little I've seen here from DZ that gives me concern. I think this is a team that when they are playing and they are locked in, which so far it looks like that's the case on map number 1, they are indomitable. And I know I quoted it on the broadcast yesterday and we kind of made some jokes about it, but our good friend Fresh openly said he thought DZ was like the perfect team and would win the major. They almost didn't qualify, so he could have been wrong in that regard. But I do agree with him. I think when DZ is on fire, they are on fire, and they are very quick to get in the building now, Jesse. Taking this top 4 by force.
Yeah, they had Ambi inside of Rafters supporting on this extension, but he ends up dipping down towards the basement and will continue to lurk down there for the time being. It ends up being a relatively easy entry for DarkZero then, with Kino just on this Monty, able to take this space, not really being contested. My problem with this now is it gets kind of claustrophobic inside the bomb site. Shopify Rebellion have 4 players here around the site. They don't have construction control, so they're really kind of being pinched in on. And as DarkZero start to open these windows, open the Logi hatch, the Jacuzzi had, or well, already opened up, it gets very tough to play these positions, so they need to stay alive, and hitting shots like that will help them do it.
It's going to be a double swing now with Canadian and Rexon side by side. J90 doing some damage to what appears to be Ambi Surf, the first one to die on SR yet again. A really rough showing here for Surf in these early moments of the round. SR cleaning up on this kill feed, but there's Fultz, the man of the hour. He's good enough for 1 kill, no more on his side of things. NJR will stand up against Rexon and Ambi. The fuse kit's been surrendered over in logistics, so NJR will need to find these players. He's the end of the gun in the hands of Ambi, but he can't do any damage. Rexon is tucked away, and now the cross is being held by Ambi, who looks like he might want to swing. He's got 2 options, either that opening that was created by the Hibana earlier, or he goes for the construction door. The moment that he inches into construction, Rexon will hear that call and can easily pop up to swing. There's no way NJR gets this done, right? Right. Pulls out the sidearm. That shotgun is so weak, it's way too close for comfort. SR wins the round, but you can see frustration still on their faces.
Honestly, Parker, I think that was one of the best example of team play that we've seen from Shopify Rebellion that since this game began, frankly. It ends up being a really nice little play inside of construction, and despite the fact that things got messy towards the end there, it definitely got too close for comfort. The early round where they got that big 4v2 advantage in towards Con was huge for them to put themselves in a winning position in that round. Ambi once again started Rafters on that Scopos, but then swaps bodies to go down towards the basement, ends up flanking up red stairs, and his flank, not very successful. He doesn't even get a single kill that round, whatever. But he draws a lot of eyes his way, and that allows both Rexon and Spoit to swing out the door. Look at this. J90 is staring the wrong direction because he's worried about Ambi's flank. That enables these 2 players of Rexon and Spoit to then push on into Con. Rexon ends that round with a big 3K to answer back for Shopify Rebellion, and it's that coordinated aggression inside of Con that pulls the attention away for DarkZero and keeps Shopify Rebellion alive on Clubhouse.
I like the strategy there from the Rebellion, especially in those final moments of the round. Good patience, Ambi peeking when need be, but still maybe a bit of over peeking. If NJR doesn't miss that first set of shots on Rexon, he actually ends up winning the round, and with it, ultimately the map. Now the Rebellion will go downstairs. So back to the bottom floor bomb site, long coveted by most of these teams. It's a fairly successful place to defend. You've got your default takes through dirt tunnel and then kitchen, but a lot of teams lately have been favoring blue. Blue has been the biggest focus for a lot of teams on attack. And if you recall, that's where DZ pivoted to when they attack this bomb site. So if you can't get that church wall open and you can't carve that bomb site in half in the corridor between church and Arsenal tends to be, or Armory tends to be that middle portion, then you just go for blue, because then you just got to worry about the back of the bomb site and that church wall. And most of the defenders are not going to rotate over towards the bottom of the church. They are punished inside of that position, playing behind bar and playing behind the chassis. So not a huge roam presence, at least from what we can see here. Jesse, as we get 30 seconds into action, DarkZero droning things out, looking to try and finish this map. They've got 3 more attempts.
Looks like it's going to be a full map clear from DarkZero. It's a very similar op lineup to what we saw the last time we viewed this bomb site back in round 7 with Kino again on this glass. He pushed down main, didn't find a lot of success with it previously, but this time I'm interested to see which way he wants to take it. Shopify Rebellion, just like last time, aren't going for a heavy commitment to this roam, and I really do like that from them. I just think in this meta, going for a heavy roam strategy can be so difficult as a team, so they'll show a little bit of pressure on the roam and then fall back very quickly. A very safe style of defense to come through from SR, and that's going to bide a lot of time now. The hard breach, not great, I have to say as well on the side of DZ. They only brought cans on the side of J90. They didn't bring the Habana, which they've been running a lot of so far today. J90 has been rocking that quite a bit, but choosing instead to value those nades on the striker, still bringing some of that hard breach, and of course the ace as well from NJR. Can get one of those hatches, but it's gonna be a bit awkward. Opening pick onto Ambi. Don't know if he feels good about giving that one up.
Yeah, I mean, a restlessness. And if you're feeling yourself and you think, hey, I can take this gunfight, knock them off stride, let's do it, and you lose that gunfight, well, the whole round just kind of goes up in smoke. I don't think the round is over for SR, anywhere near over at this point in time, but you've got a minute left and you don't have an Azami on the board, so you best bet those Kiba barriers have been placed, because if not, they are of no use in the pocket of Ambi, 6 feet under. I talked a little bit about blue, and that's exactly where J90 is positioned now. He's got 2 players within striking distance. It doesn't seem like either of them are looking for an engagement in that direction. Surf's got an idea, but he's looking towards Oil Pit, Jesse. Nitro cell in hand for Canadian, lined up towards Moto. There it goes. He gets swung though. Fultz able to push in much faster than they expected. Surf has no coverage. Fultz dies to Rexon, but the advantage still for DarkZero with 20 seconds left on the clock. Surf is certain somebody will push down Oil. I think he's wrong at this current point in time. He's allowed one to go by. Surf usually dies first. Now he's last man standing. He takes down J90, pushed in this position. Everybody on DZ hunting for him, and Kino will get the job done. DZ with a score of 7-3 takes SR's match.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough task on border, Parker. 45% feels generous to Shopify Rebellion. It's not a map that we've seen DarkZero play this season, but you go back to last season, and this was the go-to. Space Station Gaming would always pick border when they had the chance against Shopify Rebellion in the best of 3, and they basically always won it as well. SR did play this map 2 days ago. That was against M80. It was a 7-4 loss, so we hope to see some improvements coming in from that game. Interesting op bans coming through. The Thatcher getting banned out by DarkZero. Maybe expecting some fast plays to come in from the Rebellion with that operator to shut down some of their defenses, but frankly, it's going to be requiring a lot of the fraggers on SR if they want to lock this one down.
Yeah, and I mean, fragging was kind of the issue with this team. Canadian ended up sitting at the bottom of the standings, which is normal. But for the longest time, it was Surf with the fewest kills and the worst rating on this team. That is a far cry from where he should be, and a far cry from where SR needs him to be. Rexon showed up just fine, but not a single person on that team went positive. He and Spoit, Rexon of course, ended up with a perfect +0. Beyond that, everybody else negative. For players like Ambi, for players like Surf, that is extremely detrimental to this team's well-being. On the side of DarkZero, it was only Newers and Kino who ended up going negative. Kino a -2, Newers a -1. Fultz was +8 in map number 1. And it is again, along with J90, backing up this trend line of Fultz and J90 absolutely clobbering people, no matter the team that they play on. Let's get going on border, a couple seconds into round number 1, and I imagine we'll have some fireworks very early.
Well, Faults went through the trouble of hiding this Kaid, so they're not going to be aware that Electric Claws will be on the table for DarkZero. Shopify Rebellion will have to find some way around it. The clutch drone, of course, a great counter to Kaid, but the first one got shot from Troy. He'll try to use the second one now, as I should see the electricity here on the Locker's wall pretty quickly. He's going to be able to keep that wall nice and closed if they don't clear out those Kaid claws. The other one went over towards Office, so some really strong utility that they'll have to deal with on the side of Shopify Rebellion. They did open half of it, as you typically see from these pro teams, so that they can continue to challenge here on these security players, not let them walk up for free. Nice little thorn trap set up by J9O right there as well, droned and cleared by Spoit. He'll be the one playing this security position and hoping to get aggressive onto Spoit. Doesn't get that early pick, but keep an eye out on J9O. He can be deadly from the CC position.
SR still droning now as we've gone past 1 minute into the round, approaching the halfway point. They're going to gain some pretty decent value here. The Trickster drone of Brava's already found a couple gadgets to turn and put in his team's favor. There'll be these little traitorous gadgets for DarkZero, one of which is the Banshee that's actually not far removed from where J9O is playing, and he went for a rotate over towards Armory before swinging right on back. Information for Surf. I don't know if it's fed to Spoit or not. Down goes J9O, and Spoit will get kill number 1. J9O was languishing in this position. Now it allows Ambi to follow up in this spot, taken over from where J9O was. He's got his hands full, dealing with somebody over towards Fountain on that Office side. NJR lurking in that position as well, but he's not the one involved in this altercation. He's got his sights turned towards that triple panel wall that's been punched on open. Spoit finds his second as he trades with Fultz. A lot of trades happening lately, Jesse, with 45 seconds left. The numbers favoring SR 4-2.
Yeah, I love the map control as well. They know they have to swing on the side of DZ to try to pull this advantage back, but NJR can't do it. Leaves Kino now in a 1v4. The wall is closed and electrified, but this isn't where the push is coming from. They've got the fuse kit off his side. Kino's got to find some way to stop it.
He has the read on Brava, doesn't get the job done. Canadian, the final kill. I was wondering if Kino was going to pivot because it sounded like somebody was pushing over from security side at top metal, but no, that would not come to pass. Kino had his hands full, and he still all smiles despite the loss. A strong start for SR, going up 1-0 on their opponent's map, but as we always say, it's your opponent's map. You're probably starting on the better side, so for SR, you got to win at least 3 rounds to be in a comfortable spot come side swap.
I said at the start of this game that the fraggers are going to need to show up for Shopify Rebellion if they have any hope of winning border against DarkZero. When you talk about the fragging trifecta on SR, you're talking about Spoit, you're talking about Rexing, you're talking about Ambi. And frankly, 2 of those players, or 1 of those players, has no real issues with consistency. The other 2 have had their moments where they haven't been able to show up. Spoit and Rexon have not been popping off every game throughout Kickoff, but they were really important pieces of that first attack coming through. Spoit obviously lighting things up on the opening frag, taking down J9O inside of CC, and then Rexon cleaning things up a little bit later. If those 2 players are on today, Parker, if those 2 guys are shooting for Shopify Rebellion, they've got a really good chance of taking this game up against DarkZero. It's been kind of interesting to see now with double Kaid picks coming through from DZ. Now we're seeing the Office Hash getting electrified by those Electro Claws. It seems like DarkZero want to play a bit more of a util-focused defense style here on border. Might open the door for Shopify Rebellion to get a little bit more active and take some more map control relatively free.
And if they can do that and they can capitalize off of DZ's roam and DZ's setup, getting that first pick, the odds that they will win the round are sky high at the moment. Through all of Clubhouse and now 1 round here on border, only a single time has a team struck first and failed to win the round. 9 of 10 rounds on Clubhouse and now 1 for 1 here on border, breaking for the team that were able to draw first blood. So if you want aggression and it is well practiced and there's not a trade in the background, you are set up so well to win the round. So I mean, that's easy for us to say, right? Because the Rebellion were not able to find that gear on Clubhouse, and that's ultimately why it was DZ who got most of the first bloods.
Nice force out onto J9O. They get him out of that CC position. Again, the same spot that he was playing in round 1. Different op this time around, of course, but a little bit of a safer clear as well. DarkZero happy to fall off that position now that the bomb site is so much farther from CC. Great Valkyrie cam being spotted by NJR too. They're going to want to try to work a pick at some points, but falling down to the main floor, they're going to rely more on these 4 nitro cells they brought on every player except NJR.
It's an incredible amount of explosives in pocket, by the way. Bolts will now fire, trying to get that nitro cell back down. If you're wondering why he's doing that, he's not trying to shoot it. He's actually trying to get rid of enough of the paneling, and there you go. You can retrieve it. Your arms are not quite that long. You are not Mr. Fantastic. You are not made of elastic. So Fultz will get it back, and now 4 of those nitro cells for DZ. 1 minute left. You were hoping that SR could be a little bit quicker with their ability to get into the map. If they have been, Jesse, they haven't had anything to show for it in terms of kills yet.
Yeah. Well, if they've got top floor control, that's going to be good enough for them. They can now start to work their way in toward the next few. The smokes are already out. They won't get the hatch open thanks to this Kaid, but there's good pressure happening over towards Passport, over towards Waiting. Surf going to start closing some of these doors, and the kills will come.
Kino might be able to find something here as now they're assembling over on this lobby side of things. Surf now in waiting room. He'll take down Fultz. It was DarkZero who struck first. We'll see if that trend line still holds for the team to strike first to win it all. Kino now eliminates Surf. That was over towards Customs. J9O emerges, guns down Canadian. That's quite long range. Spoit and Ambi now miles apart will need to be reunited by this Passport side of the map. They'll do just that. They've got a read on Kino as Ambi picks off that kill, but they are running out of time, and they know that upstairs is still held by this team of DarkZero. J9O finds his third. Spoit guns down 2. It's a 1v1, but he does not have the defuse kit, and on time, DarkZero will win the round.
I think DarkZero kind of just winning them out on the util game, Parker. When it comes to the breaching, we don't often talk about hard breaches and reinforcements dictating the victor of a round on border, but it really did come down to that when we looked at that bathroom defense coming out from DarkZero. They had the hatch above the site, fully reinforced and electrified. There was no way for Rebellion to open that, so that stayed closed the entire time. Then that single wall just at the bottom of these stairs that works from waiting into the site was also fully reinforced. There was initially a rotate on that, but they weren't able to breach it. Rexon ended up dying relatively early for Shopify Rebellion before he could use most of those Selmas, and the one Selma he used was on the roam game, so they weren't able to breach anything coming into that push. And then what space did they really have? All of top floor, that's great, but not if you don't have the hatch open. All of waiting, that's nice, but that's one angle, and again, you can't breach into the bomb site. So it ended up just being Shopify Rebellion getting stuck in a bit of a box down there towards waiting, up above the bomb site. The amount of map they had controlled was quite high, but they couldn't do anything with it because the site was just too locked down.
The thing with the waiting room is that it's actually designed like a box. It looks like it's 4 even sides here, so very poetic and very good choice of words for you. I don't know if you deliberately did that. Yep.
Yeah, I think more or less. It was in my thought. I was looking at the square.
I'm very proud of you. So, it is a bit surprising to see how sluggish the timing was of that round. One of the hallmarks of Border is constant action that begins early. First kill came at, what, 44 seconds left on the round? That is a really, really slow pace by most measures on Border. Round number 1 wasn't that much faster. There was about a minute and a half was left. It was a little bit less than that, but still, these are sluggish rounds. Shopify Rebellion are not usually a fast team, and they're not going to be able to quicken the pace much here in round number 3. Fultz jumps out, kills Surf. Surf has been killed while he's trying to get inside the building 4 times now across both maps, and he's dying really early. Again, he's a player that they're going to miss. His skills are going to be missed, and the information from him playing Solid Snake will especially be missed.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing, right? On Clubhouse, it was the Thermite, one of the most critical operators. Now it's a Snake, one of the most critical operators here on Border. The ace continues to fall. I mean, that's another early death from Rexton, and hard breach is not usually thought of to be that important on this map, but losing it could be devastating. It's custom supply, by the way. We haven't had a chance to talk about it, but this bomb site can be a bit of a weird one to defend. DarkZero have taken this as an opportunity to get aggressive. It's a jump out from Falge, it's a long angle from Kino. They're working these picks, and really causing a bit of whiplash for Shopify Rebellion. You're absolutely right that the last couple of rounds were very slow. That's due to how DZ were playing it. Now DZ pick up the pace, it catches SR off guard, and they've worked themselves a two-man lead.
We've got what appears to be no logic bombs remaining, so Spoit's used all that intel info, and things for SR will not get better. They know they've got one isolated over by security. That's J90 flashed multiple times. He's finished off by Canadian. Ambi had died moments before that. So SR just has Spoit and Canadian to rest their hat on. Out will go that last boogie drone as now Canadian moves over towards this lounge portion, waiting room as it's called. Down goes Kino, so Spoit with 5 kills is having a really strong start to this map and has had a terrific day compared to what we've seen of him through most of Kickoff. DZ still with a numbers advantage with 30 seconds left on the clock, holding down bathroom. There goes Fultz at the hands of Spoit. He'll open up a line of sight as now this customs bomb site is within reach. Canadian, the only one left though. Spoit dies moments ago. NJR and Newers will need to clutch out. Canadian attempts to draw them out. NJR waits very patiently in jail, and Newers will get the final kill from above to give DZ their first lead on their own map.
You know, as great as it is to see Spoit finding success in this game, Parker, unfortunately, he's the only one that's really been able to show up for Shopify Rebellion. It feels like on a lot of these rounds, minus the first, which they won, they just haven't been able to get a good read on what DarkZero are doing. You could see a Kaid ban coming out from SR, and I think it would be justified at this point. It won't happen. They'll go for the Mira. I mean, banning Kaid feels so bad on Border because it's just not a super common pick. You don't think about that wall denial as being so important, but it's been run every round from DZ, and Shopify Rebellion, they just can't seem to get a grasp on if DarkZero are trying to play it slow, trying to play it passive, trying to reinforce walls and play behind their utility, or if they're trying to get aggressive, like that third round where they're jumping out the building, they're taking extended fights on the top floor, they're challenging SR on the roam clear. It's been tough to combat on the side of Shopify Rebellion. Again, Spoit's done a great job of finding picks throughout these rounds, but nobody else seems to be finding any success in that department. They're going to need to have other players showing up. Border is not a map that you can win if only one guy is fragging.
No, absolutely. This is a map that is just based around violence, I believe, referred to by many as Hell in a Cell. We like to bring that up too because it's a small map. It's a very, very small map, and it gets made smaller the moment that the attackers have windows and doors control. And that's why you see so many defenders engaging on these windows and doors, because the moment that the attackers are able to pinch you and get into the building, you are left with only a room or two to hang on to. And if there's only 2 or 3 people in a small area, you're gonna die in your gunfights. That's just the way it goes, especially if the attackers have countered you with good utility. And on a map like Border, you're going to use that attacker repick for all 5 of these players on your team to maximize what you bring to the bomb site. On the side of Rebellion, they've got a little bit of everything here, Jesse. They've got the Sens walls to obscure. They've got some hard breach in that secondary gadget brought by the Grim. They've got a shield. They've got a Lion. And then they've got anti-flank. Literally a jack of all trades lineup here.
Yeah, and I think that shield is kind of the big departure from SR's lineup previously, and I do like it as a change-up. If you're having a tough time reading into the defense setup and figuring out what the defenders are trying to do, a shield's a great way to just get information safely, walk through the bomb site, see a couple of players, a couple of walls, a couple of util, and kind of call for the rest of your team. Might allow Canadian to make a little bit better reads here in throughout the mid-round. It is top floor, so there's not as much map to clear on the side of Shopify Rebellion. This battle of J90 versus Spoit inside of CC has been a big focus throughout this game, but I'm not sure it's going to matter for the Plants. Canadian going straight into Archives to make this one happen.
He's got Diffuse Kit in hand with the walls not too far removed, but they're worried about Nitro Cells. They saw how many that DZ brought in previous rounds, and I think they have good cause for concern here. J90 dies to Surf on the board. Only his 2nd kill here through 4 rounds, but he's got time to increase that number. So far on Border, first blood means you win the round through all 3. Will it hold for Rebellion now at the halfway point? Next target might be NJR as 2 separate players from DZ try to narrow down Canadian, try to remove some of his HP. They're not succeeding, and NJR manages to do some serious damage, drops Rexon in the process, but he's still in a tough spot, Jesse.
Yeah,
awkward now too, because you've used all those Sens walls. Bit of a 1v1. Newers just takes down Canadian, not able to make that space. It's a trade coming through from Surf, but you now lost your captain. You've lost that spearhead. Easy jump out from NJR, secures the down he got earlier on Direxon. Now it's a solid 3v3, but the map control from Shopify Rebellion is a little bit sketchy. They've lost control of Office despite having good pressure there earlier. They have to rotate all the way around the map now to break through.
Wall secured!
Late reinforcement from Fountain will make it trickier to get from this position in security to the bomb site. Ambi holding the defuse kit, Spoit on half HP with Surf still at full. That's the state of the ball game right now for Rebellion should they want to get the plant down. Nitro Cell in pocket for Kino. NJR dies, no gas to be had. They're worried about over towards Armory, and now Kino is trapped in Sandwich, worried about a vault in from Workshop. Or from Vents. He gets the down, he gets the kill. It's all up to Ambi now as he tussles, and Fultz will shut the door. The lead for DZ will grow. They're up 3-1.
It's a crazy round from both sides, Parker. Shopify Rebellion started that round trying to push in through Archives. They ended up rotating around the entire building, first pressuring into Office, then going to break. You saw some pressure Catwalk, then eventually CC. They ended in lockers. They do a full 360 around the map. But in the end, despite some really good kills that came off of that attention that they're drawing one way or another, not making it so obvious to DarkZero where they're trying to push, they ended up using most of their resources kind of on that initial play, with Surf using all of those Sens walls. Canadian going down feels really, really bad just in towards break room. There was a huge pick from Newers to really get that one frag. Even though he died right after the refrag coming in from Surf, killing Canadian on that shield just makes things so much easier. And the last three guys, Ambi, Spoit, Surf, just not able to coordinate well enough with low time on the clock, very little HP on a couple of those players too. DarkZero as the defense just in a bit of an advantage spot, knowing that they don't have to be the ones to cause that initiative to get the defuse kit on the ground. With 3 straight round wins for DarkZero, it will be attack timeout from Super, trying to right this ship before it gets too far off course.
Yeah, this is the side where SR is supposed to be excelling on, by the way. So the fact that they're already in this hole, yeah, that's a problem. So you burn a timeout early, not quite as early as some of the previous matches that we've seen. I think your points stand up quite well here. And I mean, when you look at Rebellion, it's just, to me, it's clock management, right? DarkZero have assessed that they are a slower team. Most teams that have played up against SR understand that this is a slower team. And whether that's by design or who knows what, that's a question for SR directly. But when you've got guys like Newers, who's itching to take early fights, and you find a map where that is, it's a smart strategy, but it's actually the optimal strategy to take fights early for a lot of these defenders, as we see teams across all regions do. And you're able to potentially knock off a high-value utility op. It's the perfect storm here for DarkZero, so that is going to be the call made by DZ. It works round after round after round. And while Surf was able to get the first kill in the previous round, it was traded back pretty shortly after. So DarkZero didn't really lose all that much by surrendering J90, other than losing a great player on the team. DZ, I suspect, will continue to play very fast on these defenses, forcing Rebellion into disadvantageous fights early on in the rounds.
I really like the adaptation coming out from Shopify Rebellion. They know they're attacking back towards Bathroom, and they know the Kaid is likely to come out again. This time they've got tools to answer the Electric Claw. Pocket EMPs from Spoit there on the Dokkaebi, and then Rexon on this IQ will allow them to clear out those Electric Claws with relative ease, as well as other utility, of course, as Rexon is spotting that out as he enters through the top floor. Not going to be as similar of as an anchor setup from DarkZero. They are doing a bit more roaming. You see these players contesting on the top floor a lot more than they were previously, but you've just got that insurance in case the Kaid was pulling a similar strategy. You're not going to be caught off guard like you were on the previous attempt on this bomb site, and that could end up making a big difference. They are still focused on this top floor clear. There's a pressure from Ambi down in towards Customs 2. He gets caught off though, Parker, and that could be a big loss for Shopify Rebellion.
Yeah, not exactly the position they want to be in. They've trailed in those first duels so much, and when you lose guys like Ambi and Surf with regularity, that's a tough one to go off of. Rexon does get J90, finds another on Nikino. Bad comms, and he'll get another. How has nobody from DarkZero relayed this information? They're all looking in different directions, and Richie walks in, slaughters 3 of them, and DZ is now left with just 2 players and a minute to go.
It's unfortunate, Parker. Kino was looking over towards Canadian. Faults was looking at someone else over towards the Archive side. So just too much pressure coming from too many different directions. That's good team play from Shopify Rebellion to make that multi-man advantage, go up against these isolated roamers on the side of DarkZero. It puts NJR and Newers into a really bad spot. So NJR is trying something risky with this flank.
Surf takes down NJR. That risk does not pay off. And now Newers will watch as the gap between these two teams goes down to 1 round, barring a miracle. He's spotted, finished off by Spoit. Rexton, though, winning the round almost single-handedly at the halfway point, taking no prisoners. SR giving up the first kill, Rexton immediately trading it back, whether it was bad communication, too much communication, who knows, but two separate players, the Mozzie and the Kaid, on the side of this DZ defense, not able to get the kill in time, and Rexton ran all over them. Still a lead for DarkZero, and I said 3 was the bare minimum here for Shopify Rebellion. That's the best that they can hope for. They used their timeout, and they are in quite the hole, and the job will likely get harder when the side swap comes in. So salvage as much of it as you can if you're SR.
I mean, it's been a weird border. Nobody's going to deny that, especially with the Kaid tricks that DarkZero have been pulling on this map. But that previous round, round 5, I think was a perfect example of why this map so commonly leads towards the attackers. You see that entry coming out from Shopify Rebellion. You see how difficult it is for those roamers to focus on the big problem, which was Rexton in that round, because their attention is just being pulled in so many different directions. Kino on the Kaid, he was staring at Canadian East Stairs. Faults on the Mozzie, he was staring at Surf, entering in through Archives. So, you know, from our POV, watching Rexton, that looks a little goofy. Nobody's looking at this guy, but they're all worried about different threats, and you can only look at one direction at a time in this game. You don't have two faces, one on the backside of your head. So it's tough to be a defender here on border. I think that round Shopify Rebellion did a really good job of pouncing on those extended players and making their life difficult. Could be doing so again. There's a guy just inside the breach that Canadian just made. Oh, Newers' potential to do something crazy here, Parker.
This is just peak Newers, and I'm here for it. I love it. He's giving the game up and manages to get away. That's Canadian on the other side of it. The old man is going to need to outshoot Newers in this position, as now he's worried about one over on this stock portion of the map, and they will continue to push forward. Down goes Ambi. Great crossfire, but it does cost SR the opening pick. They almost lose Rexton in that position as well. So things could have gone from bad to worse for SR there. They do take down the Solus. They do take down Newers. That's a minute off of the clock, and, well, Rexton is quite wounded.
Yeah, sucks that Ambi lost that fight, but you were there for the trade. That's what they did really well in round 5. Since the TAC timeout, the team play has been so much better for Shopify Rebellion. The trade game, the coordination has been elite. Now they've got to find a way to do it again. The players on DarkZero that they have yet to contend with are a little bit closer together. Faults on the Pulse is actually calling some information for J90 just behind him inside of CC, so the intel is flowing on DZ.
Rexton with gun in hand, half HP, continuing the heroics from the previous round. DZ now losing out on that even footing they were on. His position here inside of security has been played by J90 so much. He's flirted with going back towards the bomb site, or at least over top of it. I should be more specific. But he'll hold this position for the time being. Surf has now found an opening. Nade ready, out will go the smoke. The pulse needs to move. Fultz, did you not see the giant indicator on your screen? That was tossed perfectly by Surf. Fultz dies because of it. Kino drops next, and it looks like a tie game is on the menu. 1 minute for J90 to clutch out. Same situation as before. You got to win a 1v4. Newers was unsuccessful in the attempt. How about J90? They let the defuse kit go down. Over towards bathroom. No rotate had, but he's going to shoot away at some of the wall. SR now just ghosts, and that's the 11th kill for Spoit as they shut the first half down. 3-3 the scoreline.
The Rebellion roar back from that 3v1 advantage, Parker, but let's hear what our desk want to think about that first half.
Well, thanks, Jesse. I mean, I feel like we wouldn't have this any other way. Tied up going into the second half when really all that matters is SR get to that map 3. A big final few rounds from them to equalize, but DZ, they started out this map really strong.
Yeah, they absolutely did, and I want to give credit to SR for being able to bounce back, but I want to take a look back at round 1, 2, and 3 specifically. In round 1, you got to keep in mind, SR, they kind of controlled the tempo. Sure, it was sluggish, but it was also on DZ. They were getting too aggressive. SR was taking full advantage of that. DZ instantly thinks, we don't have to further exacerbate any more issues. We don't have to play an aggressive game. We already know they're playing slow and they're scrambling in the late round. So let's bring the Mira, let's bring the Valve, let's bring the Mozzie. Let's delay as much time as possible, make them question their routes and how they want to entry the site, how they want to entry into the map, and you would see it. They would know that if SR keeps delaying, they're going to lose to themselves just off that alone, where they then can get aggressive on them into the later half of the defense. So I really like what we saw out of DZ, just making that transition, making those pivots. But again, for SR to be able to bounce back into these last 2 rounds, going 3-3.5, that's a phenomenal start for a huge comeback.
I mean, it's amazing that they did get those 2 rounds. It just worries me a little bit because round 5 and 6 were won the same way. I mean, Rexon walking through the 90 into Fountain rotate and getting 3 kills on people not looking at him.
Wow.
This stroke of luck, right? Next round, immediately after, is just another round where it just seems like they get the first pick onto Newers and then the site is empty, the nade hits Fultz through the floor. It feels like a lot of situations that are just lucky that SR are in the position to be on the winning end of it. That being said, it doesn't seem like SR is playing too confidently. They're being very split up in the way that they're attacking. I'd imagine that's the exact same thing we're going to see on defense. That's what we talked about before the series. Border just breeds bad habits from SR. They play very spread out. They're going for gunfights, and if it wasn't for those lucky situations, they wouldn't be tied up here.
I will say, I don't want to say that they're getting lucky. I also think maybe DZ is getting a little too ahead of themselves because, I mean, we even hear in some of the comms that they're still focused. They're still focusing on trying to get to that late round execute, trying to go for these plans. They find these gaps. I think it's more so been on DZ kind of getting in their own head. And, I mean, you even saw Fultz. I mean, he had the grenade indicator right there and just sat there and still sat on his scanner. So I think it's just more so DZ getting a little lackadaisical and SR taking full advantage of it.
Right, it's clear the focus is still there from both teams, right? But just a couple of openings here and there has been enough for Shopify Rebellion to keep us even going into the second half. Parker, Jesse?
Thank you very much. A very even bout between these teams. Scrappy as ever. DZ with the upper hand. And again, it's their map, and the familiarity that comes with it should now be on full display as DZ goes to their ideal side, now attacking on border. Just knowing the composition of these teams, what's the main thing that you're going to be looking for, Jesse, about how DZ attacks this map versus what we saw out of the 6 attacks from SR?
Well, Parker, I go back to that 5th and 6th round that we saw from Shopify Rebellion where they found the most success. And Fox says it's lucky that they were able to put themselves in those positions. Maybe it's a bit luck. I do think you got to give credit to some of those players too, though. I mean, the positionings that Shopify Rebellion were in was not random. They were putting themselves in spots where they could draw that attention away and they could rely on their gun skill to see players like Rexon step up. I'm hoping we see a bit more of that coming through from DarkZero too. If Shopify Rebellion are going to be more individual on the defense, like our panel suggests, which I think is very possible, DarkZero need to make sure that they're playing together, they're coordinating to flush these players out and work as a team to be able to get these picks. You can't be giving 1v1 picks over to Shopify Rebellion, especially without the way Spoit is playing at the moment.
SR with 2 very quick kills. DZ's tempo was so fast, but SR greets them at the end of their weaponry. Fultz with a shotgun of his own down below will outduel Canadian. That's SAS on SAS violence. And it's not necessarily enough to turn the entire tide of this round, but that is a great answer back. They had allowed that smoke to influence the tail end of the round, even though Canadian had used some of his toxic babes earlier. It could spell problems for DarkZero. Still though, the quick pace allows 2 minutes for allows DarkZero for the next 2 minutes to figure out what they want to do and how they want to approach this bomb site.
Yeah, Canadian loves playing this east stairs position. You'll often see him on the Azami. Goes to the smoke instead. A lot of teams on border will ban Azami and smoke just to really focus in on that east stairs position. They go for Rexon's Mira instead on the side of DarkZero. I don't think that's a bad decision, but it does allow Canadian a little bit more comfort as he's playing that spot with the smoke. Enables that 2-man pick to come through. Unfortunately, dies to Fultz, but still a man lead favoring Shopify Rebellion for their first defense. Now you got to kind of go into panic mode for DarkZero. How do you recover this? Well, they're going to go off the side because that's the map that they control. They're not clearing these angles properly, and Ambi gets the first one.
Things will not get better for DarkZero from here on out unless they get active, with J9 out and Newers now both in the negatives in terms of KD. That is something you don't usually say about these players, but everybody is negative on this DZ roster, despite the scoreline, which is really quite surprising. A 3-3 scoreline, and SR's kills are infinitely higher. Spoit in particular has been a non-factor on the kill feed this round, and yet he sits at 11, shutting up the naysayers who have been clamoring for his head as SR has had some very pronounced struggles. He and the rest of the team, minus Canadian, will now hold on for 40 seconds as the two remaining players from DZ work their way towards top metal. The smoke from Newers allows him to bypass these defenders. Though Spoit is the one that will likely be first point of contact here, Jesse.
25 seconds, hoping to lock things down. They're going locker side instead, so it might be Surf the first one to meet them. Rexon rotates over as well. You see the outlines, and J9O strikes first.
They didn't expect him to be so close by. Spoit has his teammates back. That one was still quite close. A terrible beginning to the round for DarkZero, but they managed to put up quite a fight and almost turned it on its head. But that man on your screen saves the day at the final moment, and SR take the lead.
I think a round that you can forget if you're DarkZero. They went for a rush strategy. It didn't really go their way over towards East Stairs. It's kind of a throwaway strat, right? It's your first attack. You're trying to catch SR sleeping. Doesn't really go your way. I don't expect DarkZero to attack like that very often in the future. Again, really good play by Canadian, I think, to stall things out there. And then Ambi here in the late round, finding a little bit of success. I started this cast by saying of the three fraggers, Ambi is the one who is most consistent, who I have the least fears about going cold on a map like Border. He was actually the only one who did really go cold out of the three fraggers on the side of SR. Both Spoit and Rexon were excellent on that offensive half. It's good to see all three of them now getting active on their first round of defense.
Terrific stuff from this SR team, and a big confidence-inspiring round. They called their timeout. They've looked like a much better team, and this is actually their third round in a row at this point in time, and they're still doing it without getting those first bloods. DZ leads the way at the moment, 4-3 in those opening duels, but there have been trades, so that number is a little bit deceiving. DZ may be a little bit apprehensive about where these defenders are and whether they will decide to engage early. They've already burned one of their Lion charges, but DZ's not going to slow down at all, Jesse. They are getting into the building in the first 20 seconds. Folt's the first one to do so as he gets in with his drone. Now is Kino on the shield looking to get in, but stopping for the time being. Still need more information. They'll spy the Thorn of Spoit in the exact same position that J9O played in security on the exact same Irish operator. I don't know if Spoit is aware of how close they are, Jesse. If he doesn't know, he could be walking right into a trap set by DZ.
He knows they don't have east control, so he's got to be a little bit careful with that long hallway, but he does have teammates up here on the opposite side of the map to lock things down, Canadian in particular, holding this hallway, so he knows exactly where he can play. Of course, we'll be aware of the players outside the building too. Ambi was the one player who was not on the top floor, but he actually rotates up metal, caught on a Lion scan, so a bit of information, but the map control from DZ, it's slowed down dramatically. It was quick to get into east, but they've kind of backed off to try to force a pick onto Spoit. Didn't really work for them, and now, as Shopify Rebellion fall off from some of these top floor positions, you can hear the reinforcements. They're happy to give things up almost a minute and a half through, but they aren't getting any of these frags, and that's the problem for DarkZero. They need a bit of a man count advantage before they can start to clear out the rest of this top floor.
Kino now over towards Fountain on office side. Ambi guns down Foltz. The wall next to Kino blows up, and he is in trouble. Where is his coverage? The Malusi firing away as Canadian is not going to be long for this earth. Rexon downed as well, but surface the cross. He and Spoit will now need to clutch out. Spoit will get 13 kills so far through this map. A really terrific score line on his end as Rexon could be retrieved, but I don't know if that's the plan for SR at this point in time. Newers and J9O now holding above the bomb site, not far removed. What are you laughing at?
Rexon's not getting retrieved. He's in Fountain. That guy's dead. That guy's been dead.
He could be retrieved, Jesse. I stand with my reasoning. You have to say it for the viewers. You have to say it to give them some hope. The whole point is the theatrics of it.
I think they don't realize he's down finally. No, they're just taunting him now. Okay, he's down.
They'll finish him off. Is that SR getting up on the stairs close to J9O with the bailiff in hand? Yes, it was. Look at this. The moxie of the rebellion. As they try to take the fight directly to J9O, he's got the defuse kit. He will need to link up with Newers, but is worried about the drop down inside of customs. He's got a soft wall in front of him. Worried on somebody on the door, nobody is there. Fighting his way across, still with the bailiff in hand. It's not exactly the weapon you want in this situation, but can do mighty good work. Surf thinks there might be somebody above. Same with Spoit. They now see them down below. Newers dies. J90 all on his own. He gets one kill, but runs out of time. Another one for the Rebellion as they are streaking, Jesse. 4 in a row, and their lead will grow to 2 rounds.
All according to plan, frankly, Parker. I mean, this looks really good for Shopify Rebellion on now back-to-back defense rounds. They start quite aggressive. They've extended themselves over towards East a little bit, certainly in towards CC and Break. That's where Spoit was at in the Thorn. But then at about a minute 40 left on the clock, they all fall back. They retreat over towards above the bomb site, in towards Fountain, Archives, Lockers, etc. And then DarkZero get messy. They start to get in. They start to get fights. We see a flurry of kills happen on that top floor. And initially, it looks heavily favored for DarkZero. Not counting Rexon, who was, of course, downed for the vast majority of that round. There was, at one point, a 4v2 advantage for DZ. But Spoit is able to step up inside a Fountain, refrag his teammates, put himself up to 13 as Surf gets up to 6. And then in the 2v2, man, they play that perfect. Rotating up at the worst possible time for DarkZero. They catch them off guard. They apply that pressure to Jan, I know, with the defuse kit, as you said. And then once they have the last 10 or 15 seconds, Shopify Rebellion are above the site. You're not getting a plant down there. You don't even have smokes on the side of DarkZero because, of course, their smoking operators both died during that roam clear. So really well played by Surf and Spoit in the technically 2v4. They clutch that one up. They give SR a 5th round, and after that attack timeout, I'd be shaking a bit if I was DZ.
Yeah, some obvious concerns here, and it keeps with the trend line of these teams winning each other's maps. It has happened an embarrassing amount here in Kickoff. I have full faith in our admins, but sometimes when I see this happen, I go, did we get it wrong? Did we swap it up here? And this is actually their own maps, but no.
No.
The first half, honestly, is a big confidence booster and a big motivator, right? If you're starting on your opponent's map and you get the stronger side, there is something to be said for mental momentum. But I will say, one of the phrases that we use quite often is mental resiliency. There's a lot of different ways that you can say it, different terms you can use. But this DarkZero team is unflappable quite often, and they have shown that even when they have really had their hands full in their matches, look no more than what happened against SSG earlier today, they stay calm, their vibes are good, and they trust each other, and because of that, they are never going to allow their opponents to get under their skin. For a team like DarkZero, with the experience they have, that's just another tool that they can use in their toolkit and rely upon to beat their opponents. Now they got their hands full, of course, because they're trailing. It looked like this first half, Jesse, DarkZero was going to run away with it, but the Rebellion have had other ideas.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Both these teams have, I think, entered Border with really good plans on the defense. Shopify Rebellion were able to bounce back after attack timeout. Now it's DZ's turn to do the same thing. They've called their tactical timeout. They need to find ways to break down these defenses. It'll be a bomb site they haven't seen before. Bathroom and Tellers, of course, being brought out by Shopify Rebellion, but look at the information brought out by DZ. Not only is there a Snake and a Dokkaebi, but 3 drone operators, which I know you love to talk about, Parker. Flores, Twitch, and Brava, all coming through, not only to clear util, but of course to gather that information, to use those drones to get intel for the attackers as well. Shopify Rebellion will have to be sharp about shooting those drones. They've done a good job of it so far, but will always be worried about the intel for DZ. Even though they don't have kills yet, 1 explosion's all it takes.
Rexon is on this window. J90 could have gotten him, but Rexon manages to do it first. That's a surprise for both, I'm sure. Newers exchanging a lot of HP, not finding the kill. Kino does, immediately thrown out of the map by Ambi. So Rebellion sticking to this DarkZero team, and SR is in terrific shape, and it will only get better now as Fultz retrieves the diffuser, dies immediately at the hands of Ambi. Everything has gone wrong for DZ this round. They only found a single kill on Canadian. Newers could have another. He won't get it. Terrific play by Rexon. He and Spoit got a backpack big enough for the whole team. It's map point for SR.
I mean, Parker, they bring 5 intel operators, but you wouldn't know it looking at that defense. They didn't seem to have good information as to where the players were roaming around for Shopify Rebellion. Most notably, that opening pick, Rexon up inside of offices. They don't have a good read on him. Then as things get scrappy, it ends up being a trade in the mid-round. Rexon gets another one as the trade isn't fast enough to take him down. It just gets way too scrappy on that top floor, and for a team that should have had a massive info advantage, you cannot be letting that happen to you on
on those top floor clears. DarkZero not good enough in round 9, and with Shopify Rebellion now being on map point, about to force Cafe here in this best of 3 series, I don't know if there's a way back in.
Yeah, I think it might be the end of the road for DZ unless something major changes. And I mean, things can change one debilitating round after another, and suddenly it becomes an almost impossible task to get yourself back in this matchup. Things looked so good for the Rebellion on Layer only 2 hours ago against 1 of 30, and then 1 of 30 won 6 rounds in a row, pushing that matchup into map number 3. I mean, DarkZero is technically on better footing right now than 1 of 30 was on at the time, and 1 of 30 is not going to the major. DarkZero are. I think by process of elimination there, you can suggest DarkZero's maybe a bit of a better team here. So DZ can definitely muster it up. But the one thing I noticed was 1 of 30 started to settle things down, and Mike W just exploded in that match. We said this yesterday in a completely unrelated matchup. You're looking for a hero. Who is the hero here for DarkZero? They don't have one. The highest amount of kills on the team is 5, and it's shared by 4 players. They need a breakout performance. They need to get into the map, take control early, find a couple picks, and then settle down. That's something that they haven't been able to do, and I don't know if they'll be able to do it on this fateful round.
Well, I'll tell you, Parker, they didn't really get a fair shot at it last time because they went for a rush east stairs, but this time a more traditional take doesn't go their way. This is a tough gunfight to take with the Thorn here. You don't have the greatest of long-range weaponry, but Spoit is still able to find the head of Newers, and as you were saying, who's going to be the hero? My mind went to Newers. My mind went to him, who's going to be that one guy on the intel operator, the entry frag for DarkZero. He's supposed to be that guy, but he goes down early, so then it falls onto one of these more flex support players on the side of DarkZero. Kino almost had a gap where he was able to walk up onto Canadian. The Toxic Babe stalls him back, though, and he's forced to retreat back outside the building to play with his teammates.
23 kills spread across DarkZero, 24 kills spread across Rexen and Spoit. That is some earth-shattering numbers. Ambi will add to his tally as he eliminates NJR. Things are not good. And remember, we highlighted this when it was 3-3, 6. When it was 3 rounds ago, 6 rounds into the game. DarkZero, every player was negative despite it being a tie game. The kills were way higher on the side of Shopify Rebellion, and that has only continued to grow. The guns have come alive, they have woken up, and DZ continues this decline, Jesse. Undefeated in groups, pushed down to the lower bracket, and now might end up finishing as the lowest seeded team in North America if Cafe does not go their way. But DarkZero looked quite restless and listless here on this map. They've got a minute left to take a 3v5 and win the round, or else we move to map 3.
Begging for a kill, but nothing is offered by Shopify Rebellion. A flash will come through. Spoit's still the most aggressive player on this map, and they're having so much trouble clearing him out. They're going to use all their utility, but the jump in gets caught by a Thorn Trap. It downs 2, and that's going to be a 1v5 for Kino to recover.
Could this be a flawless end? Spoit with 1, Surf with another. 16 kills for Spoit. Bad day for the hate washers, as he's proven all of you wrong. Now it's Kino tussling on the door frame. 5 still up for SR. Kino knows how hard this is going to be, and Ambi will seal the deal. A flawless round will give it to SR. They dominate DZ with the same scoreline that DZ dominated them on back in map number 1. 2 7-3s, and we've got Cafe as the final map to settle this one, Jesse. Steal SR's map, and only a small percentage of you say, you know what, I've changed my mind. Now, SR takes DZ's map, and like 30% of you go, okay, we've changed our mind. And you completely swap over. Maybe it's closer to 20%, but still, pretty crazy stuff. And here we are now with, at most, 15 rounds left in the NAL kickoff. I'm paid by Blast, I'm paid by Ubisoft, you are as well. There have been some league formats that we've had in the past that I've never talked about because, you know, the old saying of you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. I actually quite like this kickoff format for a major. I would like if there were more best of ones, but beyond that, it's been a really fun series of games to determine which teams will fight in Salt Lake City for their regions. It's been an absolute blast to all the casters that have come over to this region. We say thank you to, of course, our fearless host, Jonah, and our two analysts, Davide and Gabe, and everybody working the graveyard shift in Copenhagen on the production side of Blast. We are all one big on-air crew, and we thank you for your viewership, and we thank you for the fun times. We are excited to welcome you to Salt Lake City in a couple weeks' time, and the only question left to be answered, Jesse, is who wins this match, DarkZero or the Rebellion?
Well, Parker, 9 hours ago, this broadcast started, and it will end the same way it began, with DarkZero on Cafe. Vaults immediately rolled over by Rexon, and a couple extra shots for good luck. Nice little entry there to come out from SR. Immediately answered back by Newers on Despoit, so we are really off to the races in this game. No time to catch our breath. Don't even know where Spoit dies in the midst of that. You'd expect maybe on the roof. Could have been a challenge on, was a spawn peek through the front door or through the outside of the building? Yes, in fact it was. He was outside of the wedding window. That's a tough one to lose. Parker, DarkZero won their first game on Cafe 8-6 today against SSG. They're hoping to repeat that. If they can do so, they'll be headed to phase 2 of the Salt Lake City Major rather than just phase 1.
Spoit leads the way in the lobby right now with 25 kills at an eye-watering plus 13. It's been one of his best results on this SR team in quite some time, and certainly his best that I've seen here on Kickoff. Hold on. He won't be available, as you mentioned. He was the first casualty. They traded out Fultz, who, believe it or not, is the top frag on DarkZero. So the two best players in the lobby not available, removed from both of these squads. But Rexon's been no slouch either. 18 kills, tied with J90 for that third overall slot. J90 was a little quiet on border. NJR will get involved, taking down Canadian, and DarkZero will see not NJR or not J90 get the kill. NJR will immediately pay for that. Ambi guns him down. They've got control of the bomb site. And Rexon will go for the plant. Ambi sitting over top of him as the smoke clears, expecting somebody from pillars. That is correct. Bullets whizzing by, and SR might be able to get out of this with their heads still on their bodies. Timer on the defuse kit will run. Surf has a great angle as the Mira gets him. Surf was patient, but what a play by Kino. Pivoting, taking down Surf. Nitrocell goes out. Ambi trades him off. And it's Newers and J90 with Jack still above. Unable to contest with Ambi, who's looking for kill number 4. He won't get the ace, and he won't get more than 3. 2 from Rexon, 3 from Ambi, and SR takes round 1.
Well, it's a fast and exciting one to start us off on Cafe, Parker. Crazy trade games. You got an aggressive pick going both ways to start things off. I think it sets up DZ in maybe a bit of a better situation. I'd rather lose Faults on the Vigil than Spoit on the grid, especially after how Border went. But in the end, it didn't matter much. When Shopify Rebellion focused in on the site, they trade 1-for-1, losing Canadian for NJR. And in the 3v3, they just play really nicely to lock down that diffuser, to get it planted down, Surf covering to make sure those other couple of players couldn't retake in towards the site. And it's just a really nice couple of trades to come through at the end there. Jalen Turk, a little 3K coming out from Ambi to start things off after a bit of a slow start on Border. You love to see it if you're an SR fan.
An explosive round and a very fast tempo set from a team that we wagged our finger at a few times on Border for being a little bit too slow. That was our thought process in that first half, right? DZ knew that this SR team was quite slow, so they were able to exploit that and punish that. But if SR can be quicker, which is something that maybe Canadian, Super, and the rest of the coaching staff have worked on, along with the whole team entirely, then Rebellion can surprise you. On the line now is 3rd overall in North America. SI points on the line, extra money on the line, and more importantly, you miss out on the first phase or stage of the Salt Lake City Major, which means that you have a higher likelihood of going deeper into the event. The loser also finishes dead last in North America. Yesterday, 5 Fears came out on top. Wildcard finished 2nd by losing that series. And now we find who finishes 3rd and 4th. 30 seconds into round 2. And SR finds themselves on the roof in a very familiar spot when you're attacking this top floor of Cocktail.
Yeah, certainly. And interestingly, in the ban phase, Shopify Rebellion removed that mute. It was a big operator for Kino in that 8-6 win versus SSG here on Cafe. rotated a lot between that and the smoke. Without it being an option, it's going to have to change things up a little bit. Moves over to the Kaid for this round, but it's Newers that strikes first. The information is really good from DarkZero, and it leads to that Nitro pick right onto Rex and Kino, getting good value out of that C4. Ambi is in, though, and you can't count this kid out. Massive 2K to walk through that top floor, hoping for a trade as J9O, but he's not able to find it. Instead, it's his teammate, his captain of faults, who goes down. A third for Ambi. It has all been explosive once again, Parker, and J9O is in a 1v2.
90 seconds now off of the clock, and this round is basically over. J9O plugging holes inside of this piano portion of the map. Ambi with 3 Ks in both of these rounds, sitting at 6 kills now. He saw how good Spoit did in the previous map, and he said, all right, bet, I can do better. These 2 remaining players from SR, one of them is Spoit, both sitting under new hatch. Diffuse kit not in hand of J9O. He will have to hunt it down as Surf holds onto that. Spoit will seal the deal, and SR picks up their second round. That was a tough spot to be in for Jack. If he had case control, completely different game, but no, it was held by SR. And so far, they're off to a perfect start.
Both teams seem to want to get aggressive early, Parker. It's not just that SR are rushing into the building and playing things very, very fast, but DarkZero now across both rounds have made aggressive moves of their own to speed up the tempo. You saw it again with Faults trying to make that play happen down in Bakery in round number 1, the spawn peak happening in round number 1 as well. The Yokai drone from NGR was excellent to gather some good information, but at a fast-paced game, when you look at the gun skill on SR versus the gun skill of DZ, it's 10 amazing fragger, well, Canadians there, 9 amazing fraggers around the board no matter how you shake it out. But in the end, I just think SR are a little bit more on after that border performance. Ambi has been incredible with this pace change, just taking advantage of the fact that some guys on DZs are on cam, some guys on DZ are holding nitro cells. There are players with their guns up, Newers in particular, but if Ambi's able to find a bit of a gap, explode in through that top floor, it can make all the difference in the world. You see him just there, we're able to drop that skylight and really just make a mess of the top floor defenders. Forced attack timeout to come through from DarkZero, clearly not able to find an answer to this aggression on their own, requiring the assistance of callout.
Yeah, another early timeout. This has been the story for DZ so far, and it's had mixed success. It didn't really do much to stop Border ultimately, but it had some pretty huge benefits on Clubhouse. DZ and SR both called their timeouts quite early on Clubhouse, if you will recall. Here on Cafe, some of the issues that plagued DZ back on Clubhouse are showing up yet again. They are too static in the way that they hold their defenses. Now, all 3 of these maps play very differently. Clubhouse, a big map, not terribly vertical the way Cafe is. Border, a very small map, quite vertical, lots of kill holes that would be established horizontally and vertically. Cafe is usually a pretty linear map with the way that you go about it, right? You're going to try to drone from the top down and clear from the top down. On a map like, on a bomb site like Cocktail, you can't really do that. So if you're going to go for a linear execute, you're going to drone out that second floor quickly. You're going to put drones or anti-flank material on those stairs, a gridlock, a nomad, what have you, potentially claymores if they're brought, though they usually are not. And then you're going to go for a direct attack on the site. That's what we saw from Rebellion in the previous round. The problem is that DZ flourishes on defense when they get aggressive, and that has been absent for both of these rounds. They were a bit more aggressive in round number 1, and it did show some more success. We're going to need to see more of round 1 DZ, not so much round 2 DZ, if DarkZero wants to win this map.
Might need to see a little bit more of Clubhouse DZ if they want to win this map, Parker. I mean, it's been a streak, 8 in a row now for Shopify Rebellion, including the end of last map and now the beginning of this one. They have firm control over the pace, even through the 15 minutes or so it took from us to go from map 2 to 3. So the tempo is clearly in the hands of Shopify Rebellion. We've gotten past the first minute without a kill, so that's the first time that's happened here on Cafe. The pace has been slowed a little bit, but look at this, we're not too far off. Ambi again, now for 7. Able to spot out Newers and Pillar, and the kills will commence.
Ambi. Surf dies. Ambi already has 7 kills, 3 Ks in rounds 1 and 2. He has another. Oh boy, that would be a screaming start for him. He'll be enabled by the drone work that was being done, but now is completely disappeared as Ambi will drone himself in. The rest of this team will try to make up for the lack of intel as Surf died early. This has been a familiar refrain as well for Surf. His talents have been absent through so many of these rounds because he's getting picked off by DZ. Now, granted, Surf plays an entry op. That's what's going to happen most of the time. It's not like he's dying by happenstance or poor choice. It's just the way it goes. But still, you need somebody like him to be able to help the round. He survived a lot more on border because of the aggression from guys like Spoit and Rexon. And you saw the damage that Surf could do. There's Ambi with his second kill of the round. Jesse, there's no way he gets a 3K here again, right?
He's hunting for it. Knows Falt's position over towards red stairs. The impact gives it away as well, but Falt's is rotated up above instead, hoping to flank some of these guys up on the top floor. Canadian holds the defuse kit here. If he can maybe contest with that, it could open up a win con for DarkZero, but isn't able to commit to it. NJR instead hoping for this top floor frag. There's the triple. We were waiting for it, Parker, but it keeps on coming. NJR alone now in the 1v3 with 10 seconds to go. Pulls out the shotty. They know his position. He'll win it. 9 seconds. Ambi is planting. This could get denied.
Rexon will be the one watching it. He does. He stops it in its tracks. Great play by NJR. Ambi killed everybody except for NJR, and it comes back to bite him. Get this man some help. 4 kills for Ambi. I guess we are still technically correct here, Jesse. Ambi needs to get a 3K to win the round. You get a 4K, you lose. That's how it works. So Ambi, 1 kill too many. Dial it back just a little bit. Impressive stuff from the youngster on Shopify Rebellion. It's all for naught, though, as DarkZero does end up winning the round, and in operator bans, they take Solid Snake out of the equation. Rebellion will get rid of Kaid.
Massive kills coming through now from Shopify Rebellion. Ambi, I believe that was a triple, Parker. I don't think he was at the 4. As Kino ended up dying, he gets the finish off. That's what it was. He doesn't get credit for the kill on Aquino as he finished off the down. So he sits at 9, but we'll still counter as a 4. Maybe he does need that 3 to finish
Jesse, this
off.
destroys my argument. This destroys my entire argument here.
Listen, Parker, Ambi, obviously, young player on Shopify Rebellion. Troy has actually been teaching him his timetables over the last couple of weeks, and they're on to the 3s, so he's learning to count by 3s. He goes 3, 6, 9, and next, of course, will be 12. So he messes it up from time to time. Obviously, he's not perfect at it yet, but he's been pretty good at that learning behavior, and already getting up to 9 is pretty impressive here to count by 3s.
There's a funny joke in there somewhere, but please let this round do all the talking for them. It's late here on the East Coast, and a bunch of these SR guys are playing on this exact time zone. Canadian and Spoit are actually just down the street for me. Well, I can't see the Shopify offices from my place, but they can get there pretty quickly. A late night and a grueling series for these players. NJR starts things off, but there's Ambi and Spoit on the board. Rexon gone, Ambi low HP, Surf is finished off. We're 4 rounds in and it feels like Cafe just started moments ago. Ambi living on borrowed time as Canadian and Spoit are a little wounded. Spoit's still on full HP. They will need to figure out where these 3 remaining players on DZ are, and they've got plenty of time to go for it. They'll hop onto drone with 2 minutes left. Expecting the 2-brow Aquino to go for a swing as he loses some of his cover. As that Selma takes care of the bakery wall. That DMR does so much damage. Not a lot of bullets in it, but you only need to hit 1 or 2, and that can be enough. He's got 1 player tucked into the corner. He can't find the kill. There we go. What remains of Canadian is now gone. Kino losing some HP in the process. 3v2 now, favoring DZ with half the round left.
The break nest pace really does continue, Parker. Who's going to be next? Spoit is hoping to find one. J90 peeks into his crosshair for just a moment, but doesn't quite find the angle. Really good pings. There it is for Spoit. He gets his 2nd kill of the round. Now if Ambi wants his triple kill once more, he'll need to find the next 2. There's the first. Kino will drop to the floor. Newer's alone in the 1v2 as Ambi starts the plant.
So low on HP. You really rely on Spoit here for the coverage. Down goes Ambi. Spoit will need to clutch out. Newer circling around this defuse kit, firing desperately, hopelessly into the smoke. Spoit's in this position, and he wins the duel, no doubt about it. SR continue their winning ways. Nothing is slowing them down. The timeout from DZ does not have that long of an impact.
Still an absurd pace being set by Shopify Rebellion, Parker. Every single round, they are exploding into the site, and it just doesn't feel like DZ have any answers whatsoever. Despite that round win back on round number 3, Ambi has completely taken over this game. Maybe a poor showing from him this round. Only 2 kills here on round number 4, but still now will set himself up to 11-3. When they get into this low man count situation, I mean, they're even in the man advantage. It's a 3v2 for DarkZero, but the information is really, really strong. This has been consistent since this map began, and Spoit is able to work his team back into an advantageous state. It really just feels like DZ, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe they need to match the pace of Shopify Rebellion. In the 3v2, they did a lot of just sitting in towards their site, and the information made it free picks in favor of SR. I don't know if they have to be a little bit more aggressive, if they have to catch off guard SR, strike before they get struck against. There's no easy answer, frankly, when they're playing like this on the side of Shopify Rebellion, but they've got to find one, and sooner rather than later.
Yeah, time is starting to run out for DarkZero here on Cafe. Like most maps in the map pool, Cafe can be very favorable territory here for the defenders. So DarkZero on the wrong side of the numbers on this part of the map does not strike a ton of confidence in me, and might strike some fear into the heart of their fans. But again, to love DZ is to suffer, and DZ fans do know that. I made a comment about it in yesterday's match and got some traction on social media from people basically saying, "Yep, it's been tough for my heart health." So I guess maybe eat a little bit less sodium and do some cardio to make up for the fact that DZ is going to continue to stress you out.
When's it gonna come through? That's always the question with this SR team on Cafe today. Ambi's taken a bit of early damage that maybe has slowed his pace, but I'm hearing the smoke grenades, Parker. Canadian is rushing in through this top floor. Is it just a distraction, though? I mean, there's nobody really with him. It's just Surf trying to follow him up. Now the team will come through, so they are taking the space up above. Nobody's hitting directly on towards the bomb site, but that kind of fake over towards site has forced a couple of these players back. On this top floor, DarkZero have completely vacated, and still with over half the rounds, they have top control. They've got that map space, but they lose the numbers with Newers hitting a great Nitro Cell onto Rexon.
The good news is Rexon has really not been that integral a fragger on the side of Rebellion. I mean, obviously losing the Aurora on this map when cutting off that doorway access is oh so important is a detriment to this team. No denying that whatsoever. But they've still got the secret weapons of SR, and that's been Spoit and Ambi. Ambi's actually now leapt over Rexon in the overall kills in this best of 3, largely because of this incredible performance. 11 kills so far through 4 completed rounds. He's starting to come back down to earth just ever so slightly, but there's pop-off potential here, Jesse, with a minute to go. Everybody on DZ is still alive, and Ambi could easily find a couple kills.
Ooh, don't know if he meant to drop there, Parker. That kind of leaves the bomb site relatively free. Still Toxic Babes and some C4s to play with, so it's not a free plant, but Shopify Rebellion are in a good position here.
Holtz is on the run now. Somebody on the side of SR plays at the top of red stairs. He's in a tricky position. Down goes Canadian as they'll trade out. Kino dies to Ambi. There's 12 kills for Ambi at this point in time. He's got to put in so much work. R4C in hand, fragging on that Ash. Spoit is now on the board as well. Suddenly, numbers have equalized, but not a lot of time left. Spoit getting Diffuse Kit down. Surf and Ambi will need to cover. DZ's been good at stopping this. They won't get the job done this time as Spoit pulls it off, and now there's train control for Surf. Bolt's fighting around. Bolt gets them both. It's all up to Ambi, who's below the bomb site, fighting DZ. He might be able to catch one. Yes, he does. They're on the counter defuse. Fultz is there. Ambi needs to shut this one down. Can he do it in time? He doesn't have the information. A spirited effort. Ambi is doing everything in his power to keep his team in this. Oh, another close one, but DZ wins the round.
This is utterly absurd. Parker, the kills Ambi is getting, 3K after 3K after 3K after 3K after 3K. Like, what are we doing here on Shopify Rebellion to empower one player to pop off so ridiculously? And it's not even giving them a lead here through 5 rounds. It's a lead by 1, I suppose, but
With how many kills Ambi is putting on the board, you would expect a 5-0 scoreline. Credit to DarkZero for playing around these plants, being able to get some of these disables off. It has not been easy with how Ambi's been shooting today. It's an explosion onto the site, just as you'd expect. Everybody on DarkZero goes to play on that bottom floor. So what's the game plan for Shopify Rebellion? Well, they're going to sit most of their players up towards the site. They're going to get that plant down, and they'll send Ambi to go down below the site and clear out absolutely everybody, protect them from those nitro cells. He's got all of the jobs to do in this game, but he's doing them. 14-3 now from Ambi here through the first 5 rounds of Cafe, and he shows no signs of slowing down.
Yeah, this is really quite an absurd scoreline. A reminder that Spoit finished with, what, 16 kills on Border, if memory serves me correctly. Ambi only had 8 on map number 2. Rexon will start things off by eliminating J90, so they're going to pass the kills around here. Ambi steadily improving 6 kills in map 1, 8 kills map 2, and now 14. He has matched his kill total from maps 1 and 2 already. That is some crazy stuff. And I mean, again, Gabe makes me look smart by saying the things that I say are correct, but Canadian going 0-5 is totally fine. He is not somebody you are relying on for kills here. You've got guys like Ambi and like Spoit who are doing quite well. Spoit taking a bit of damage. Rexon got the opening pick. He's now at 3-3, so plenty of opportunity for these guys on Rebellion to keep getting kills. The bigger issue for me, Jesse, is DarkZero's fragging. It's been spread around very evenly, but not high. And they need to have, again, they need somebody to take over these rounds. There goes Ambi, and he gets thrown out by NJR. So the advantage still for the Rebellion. Kino taking a beating. He's finished off by Spoit. This certainly looks like a 4-2 half, but there's still 1:40 on the clock.
It's just been brutal. The pace continues. Parker, Rexon onto NJR. Newer's in the 1v4. It's been the same story for 6 straight rounds. DarkZero have had a couple of nice clutches. They've been able to play the objective, but this one might be out of reach. Spoit puts it to bed, and Shopify Rebellion will take a 4-2 lead to start here on Cafe. The attacking side, usually the more difficult of the two, but not when you've got Ambi.
The secret weapon, and he's all smiles. I want to hear what the desk has to say about this first half here on Cafe.
Shopify Rebellion, this is their winning formula. You've got one guy at the top going absolutely nuts.
Yep.
That man is Ambi. Canadians chilling there on the bottom, but this works for them. And so far, I mean, they're flying.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even need the opening kills at this point going in their favor because the teamwork is there. And like I said, listening to the comms, I mean, this is by far the smoothest that it's been. But with each and every single win that they get, everybody's screaming, everyone's getting hyped, everyone's getting animated, and that just amplifies the play as a whole. It makes the rounds just look better. And again, even the rounds that they did end up losing to DarkZero, I mean, realistically, they looked flawless throughout those rounds. Even the round prior to the round that they just finished on, Spoit almost could have won that had he just shot a little sooner, hit the player through the floor. We end this half at a 5-1. I mean, the momentum is clearly a giant factor in this success so far from the side of SR.
I mean, as the best of 3 goes on, they just get more and more comfortable. I think they come to the realization that we don't need to overcomplicate it. You know, we have the winning fundamentals, we have the winning strategy. Let's just relax. And we can see it always in the final map. That's what it looks like. They just power on. I mean, the way that they're playing objective-based siege and they just focus on getting that execute and the diffuser down, that's when you have the big players step up, like Ambi. I mean, like we were saying, if Canadians not getting any kills, the rest of the team's usually getting kills. Ambi is getting most of the kills on his own because he's set up in those positions, especially in the post plants. I mean, he's doing his absolute best because it's set up for him. And yeah, I agree. Even that one round that Ambi could have clutched in a 1v3 easily could have been a 5-1, and that's an attack Cafe. You swap sides. I don't see a way that DarkZero can really muster up unless they start getting big plays of their own.
Right, they had that NJR clutch. That was a round that SR looked like they were going to win and didn't. DarkZero need that and then some if they want to take this one all the way. 2 rounds down going into the second half to determine their placement at the major. Antero?
Ambi has 15 kills, which is 4 fewer than the entirety of DarkZero. We referenced how close Spoit was to the entirety of DarkZero on map number 2. And DZ is really just having to contend with these monster performances. If Ambi can keep this up, like Gabe talked about, like Fox talked about, what can shut him down? Nothing. There is so little hope from our analysts as to DZ being able to recover this map.
To put things into perspective a little bit, Parker, the best game that Ambi played in his career came against M80 last season in July. He posted an EPS of 193. Eye-popping numbers to come out from him, but currently right now, 6 rounds deep onto Cafe, he's sitting an EPS of 222. Those the kind of numbers just don't really happen in Siege. Maybe once a season from one player, we will see somebody post an EPS of over 200. 222 is just absurd. 15 and 4, of course, on the stats, 100% cost, averaging 2.5 kills per round. I mean, any way you frame it, these numbers are ridiculous to come through from Ambi. A lot of it was coming off the back of just ridiculous pace and the F2, of course, being played by him on the Twitch. Can't play the F2 on defense, of course. He's just going to have to do what he can here starting on Mozzie. But, I mean, if he can even put up a fraction of what he's shown in the first half, this is going to be a really tough game to pull back from DarkZero. How do you do it? You need somebody else to make a big play on DarkZero. That's what the desk said. Somebody else has got to kind of be that rock for DZ. You'd think it might be Newers just based on history, but it doesn't matter who it is at this point for DarkZero. They need someone.
One of the most captivating things about this DZ team was how even they were through the kickoff, right? Like, this was a team that was sharing the kills, they were sharing roles. You know, when the roster was first unveiled, they said, who's gonna frag? That might be a bit of an issue. It hasn't really been a problem because everybody's been getting involved. But if you're not absolutely taking over these rounds and you've got a couple guys that are not set up very effectively, you're in trouble. J9O has been fragging very effectively. This round, he finds 2 kills. Surf finds the other 2 kills. Surf looking to put this DZ advance on ice from inside of the freezer. Cannot take Newers down. Newers barely suffering a scratch on that one. Ambi on the board. Ambi is a kill in every single round so far by my count, Jesse.
Yep.
You can correct me if I'm wrong. Now sitting at 16. There are 16 kills between Ambi and Canadian. Canadian has 0 kills. That is quite the number. Newers and NJR now last 2 standing. As has been the case through all of Cafe, very fast pace has been set. Hit in the hands of NJR. And I imagine things will slow down just a tiny bit now as SR looks to reposition as they understand where DZ is coming from.
He knows how to play below this bomb site, and he could have a big moment from here once again. Doesn't have to stop a plant disable this time around. Would just like to stop the plant. Canadian's been droned, so he can play off of this. They know where Canadian is. They're going to be hunting him down. Ambi might be able to make a big move to try to capitalize on the movements of DarkZero.
He's posted up here. NJR going down. Will Canadian get restless and try to fight Newers head on? Yes, he goes for the swing. Newers reads into that one perfectly. Ambi will need to be the hero, looking for kills 17 and 18 in the post plant. There is a small fadeaway. Now it's Newers posted up against the wall, and Newers will easily get this one. Yes, he does. You said it a couple rounds ago. I might have even been on board, or it all blurs together. You were hoping that Newers would be the hero in that round. He absolutely was. And the gap closes. SR are not going to be able to run away with this one. The attackers are in great shape here on this map.
Yeah, important to claw back the first, I think. If you let Ambi run around, if he clutches a 1v2, it feels shocked on the mental at that point. But thankfully, DarkZero play well with their advantage. I mean, this top tier goes really well, partly due to Surf, partly due to Newers, partly due to J9O. Surf, of course, playing in for SR, putting a bit of a stop to that push as it comes through top floor. But in the end, they do manage to work themselves into that 2v2 spot. And that's kind of the thing with playing fast, right, Parker? As long as you can keep the numbers even, you're generally in the advantageous spot because you're going in, you're taking fights, you're taking map control, and then you give yourself so much time on the clock to build this execute. And yes, you don't have all 5 of your players, you might not have the utility that you wanted for that execute, but they still had each other. Playing together in that 2v2 was really impressive from DarkZero, able to make sure that nobody could kind of come through and force those 1v1s. They worked that plant in. You question whether Canadian would kind of take the ego peak 1v1. He did end up going for it, and I don't know if that was the greatest of calls, but just doing what they could in that moment in a high-pressure situation when you don't know if a plant's going to go down at any moment, they kind of had to just play with their reflexes, and in the end, DarkZero's were a bit better.
I think Canadians did not understand how close Newers was, right? He thought that the plant was going down. He understood that correctly. He made the call that he thought was best, but Newers was just very well positioned. And whether that was something that was instructed to Newers by Fultz, whether it was something that they'd strategized ahead of time in the post plan, or whether it was just something that Newers came up with on his own from a game sense perspective. It was very well played. And then Newers immediately getting out of the site. The drop from NJR to go through the hatch, run around downstairs so that you can get the flank off, knowing that it's a 1v2. All you need to do is have Newers survive for a period of time, and you can get in an excellent position. It was a really good end around by DarkZero here. And speaking of DarkZero, this might be a great start for them too. Ambi contending with Kino. Kino manages the kill, and he finds his way into the same bomb site as before. Looking for a defuse kit to go down. This time it'll go over towards Reading. NJR and everybody on DZ still alive, but they did not look above. Rexton shuts down the plant. Somebody on DarkZero will have to pick up the kit. That'll be Kino to do it. Still an advantage for DZ in numbers right now, but very quick pacing from both of these teams. 90 seconds left. Fuse kit is in Kino's hands on the bottom floor. They will have to get closer to the bomb site.
Yeah, he drops the hatch. We didn't see it, but very likely unintentionally ended up dropping down into freezer after he picked up that defuse kit. But it's fine. He's back over towards white stairs, going to reclaim with his teammates. It almost looked like he had the defuse kit earlier when he was going for that plant, Parker, but didn't have it. Now in the man advantage, they need to find a way to put it on the ground.
Down goes Fultz, still holding this top floor control. The big bad of Ambi silenced earlier on, first round without a kill for him. As SR now has 3 players looking for the 3 on DZ in the post plant. Spoit far enough back on this Reading door. The B-bomb chassis within reach, but nobody else is. I don't know if he knows where the kit has been posted up. He needs Surf and Rexon to be a little bit more active here. As Kino sitting at halfway with that shield, easily felled. Down goes Spoit at the hands of Newers. This is a plodding retake. Now the nade will go. Down goes Rexon. SR really struggling in this post plant, Jesse. Down goes Kino. Surf taking a beating. And there we have it. DZ have tied things up. The analysts wanted there to be life, and let there be life. 4-4 for these teams. Overtime potentially looming, Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, if DarkZero win this game, Parker, I would love to get a bit of an interview with Kino just to break down that round a little bit, because initially they rush into the bomb site on the blitz, and Kino looks like he's going to go for a plant. He smokes the corner of Dining, but he can't go for a plant because NJR is holding the defuse kit. NJR starts the plant, he gets denied from Vert, then Kino goes to pick it up and says, okay, now I'm going to go plant instead of Dining. But then he drops the hatch, and it's like, okay, was that intentional? Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Eventually, he makes it to Dining with the defuse kit. He stays in Dining, and he gets the plants on the ground. It all goes according to plan, mostly for DarkZero. It was excellent blitz play to come through from Kino at the start of that round. You saw him rushing in and taking down Ambi, playing on that Mozzie. That was such an important kill. It's the first round since Cafe began where Ambi was held off the score sheet, stuck at 16, not able to elevate himself anymore. This is the frag right now. Comes through with a combination of the Grimbees giving you pings, plus just Kino having that initiative, taking that space, making sure that they are able to kind of get that frag, and then, of course, eventually closing things out in the post plant. They've been well put together attacks from DarkZero. If they can do that continuously, Shopify Rebellion might be in trouble.
Jammer ready.
It's pacing. It really is the pacing. We saw DarkZero being able to knock off the Rebellion because Rebellion were a bit too slow. DZ have kept up these fast executes, very quick drone work on a single door or window. Then you are in the building and you are using those shields effectively. I know that I said about 2 hours ago at this point that shields are slowly losing their dominance in the meta. I think the point that I said was actually worded a little bit worse than that. I think it was saying that they're not as prominent as they used to be. My point there wasn't that shields are bad or that we're not seeing them at all. It's that they're not dominating round after round after round the way that they used to be. And I think that's a relatively fair assessment. And it does track with what a lot of teams have mentioned as well, as there's been quite a violent swing towards more Dokkaebi, more Lion, Solid Snake, Deimos, etc. But DZ not stuck in the past, but adapting to this meta and have managed to make shields be the focal point round after round. And if Kino can pilot a Monty or a Blitz into the bomb site in the first 40 seconds and get in your face and pick up a kill in the process, it is very hard to knock DZ off once they've done all that damage. And Rebellion learned that on Clubhouse, and now they're starting to see it again in front of their eyes on Cafe. They were not able to answer it on Club. On Cafe, they are running out of time in order to solve it here.
Third site, we're going down to Kitchen, Parker. They're trying to lock things down from an anchor point of view. They're going to play this relatively passive, not trying to roam up above. Basically, every pro team in this day and age will go for a full anchor setup here on this site, so don't expect any early frags this time around. The pacing has been exceptional throughout this matchup, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue here. DarkZero will start to work their way through on the vert. J9O, of course, on this ram, starting to make some stuff happen. The question is going to really be, what does this execute end up looking like? They can drop the kitchen hatch if they want to. Of course, they'll have that open thanks to NJR on the Habana. With the blitz, you maybe have an opportunity to walk down red or try to get a push in through bakery, but given the current positioning, I think the goal is going to be clear Ambi out of VIP, and then make something happen here on the backside of site.
Very interesting just happened. Kino's dropped out and is now completely rotated. There was an emphasis on the delivery portion of the map, and DZ have completely changed that up. I don't know if maybe Kino was just a distraction or he was in a different spot or not. Volts is still upstairs, and now NJR has a good read on one player of SR down below on Cam. Looks like it's Ambi in this position, and it'll be a very tough fight. Sidearm versus sidearm. Again, a Bearing 9 versus SMG 11. Both terrific guns. Newers has come in for the assist to try and maybe knock him off of his position. It hasn't worked just yet. Canadian yet to get a kill. He's down. And all those yokais will now be piloted from the grave. As DZ, now with 35 seconds to go, has an advantage. Surf eliminates Newers, so that advantage is gone. Boyd somehow wins the duel against Fultz and might do it against Kino. He doesn't succeed. It's up to Surf and Ambi to hold this together. DarkZero starting to streak themselves now, looking for a third round in a row. Ambi, the savior, time and time again. Once more, he's called upon. A Nitro Cell will go. Kino taking damage. J9O not in position to cover. They get a good read on him. Kino will attempt it again, and a beautiful shot from Jack. DZ take the lead.
The Beast gets slain in the 1v2. He's not allowed to do it again. And DarkZero, really good job playing with Shopify Rebellion's expectations during that push. Parker, I'm so glad you caught on to Kino's rotation in the midst of that execute, or in the midst of that early round, I should say, because while it was looking like a freezer finish, they were challenging the VIP guy, they were pushing brown stairs, they of course had all the verticality, and they had the freezer hatch opened up. Kino and Fultz were rotating over towards Bakery. Who was in Bakery? It's Troy Canadian sitting on his yokai cams playing with his phone. I mean, not going to be caught off guard by that blitz. He did eventually pull out the impacts, pull out the gun, but it was too little too late. Kino storms through that Bakery side push and ends up getting a really good attack in for DarkZero. And I mean, this is kind of what they've been doing all day long, all kickoff long, really. Is they've been drawing out attention on one way, and then they've been finishing their execute somewhere else entirely. It is very difficult to predict some of these DZ attacks. That was another great example of it. I talked about it back on Clubhouse. We talked about it the other day when they were playing Chalet. It just feels like DarkZero have a really good read on how to play with defender expectations, and oftentimes it's resulting in attacking round wins for them.
That's the kind of thing that gets missed, right? That Kino rotation. And it's something where, because of our spectator system and because of this game, there is a lot we are not going to pick up on. I've said that there's a benefit to co-streamers, especially co-streamers that have good ball knowledge, those that have been former coaches or those that have been former players and understand what players are thinking and know their strats better than we do. Because we're so focused on the action happening in front of us and some of the other things that might be going on that we might just not see that. It's also possible that we don't keep track of all of these players at all times because, again, our job is to focus usually on a couple. So Kino rotating could be the difference in them winning and losing the round, and it's something that we might just miss because of happenstance. Having co-streamers be able to pick up on different things, different sets of eyes, watching different players and calling different things, that's a big benefit for the viewers. And frankly, it's a big benefit from us too when we do VOD review and we watch it back. So sometimes small things like that, not shown on the scoreboard, can have a much bigger impact Speaking of big impacts, Jesse, we're about 1 minute into action and Fultz is gone. Fultz's numbers have been very poor. He's come very much back down to earth, and they've lost the Capitao on the side of DarkZero.
Yeah, it's been a good 10 minutes or so since we've said Spoit's name. I know Twitch chat's getting restless, so we have to say it again. It's a nice little spawn peek, a little peek coming out from Spoit to get that opening pick. I believe Fultz was either just outside on the window there or maybe on the skylight. More shenanigans as Rexon is outside the building praying for his life. Of course, revealed on the mute, being desperately hunted down by Kino. He will vault over and head towards Garage, where I think he will make it back into the building. Yes, he will. Kino chasing him around the map. Caught on a drone now is Rexon, and he will post up on the white stairs. Kino brings out the shotgun. It'll be Shoddy v Shoddy on this matchup, and Rexon comes out the better of it. Gets that double kill, eventually making that play happen from outside the building around the Rosie. He will get it done. 5v2 now, leading for SR.
Well, DarkZero were able to claw this one back 3 rounds in a row, but then the opening duel goes for Shopify Rebellion, and pretty much everything else has gone in their favor. It's good that the depth here for SR is being shown off. It's not just the Ambi show. Newers and J9O have taken the reins on this DZ team, and J9O's numbers are steadily improving. You know you cannot let J9O back in a match. The moment that he's empowered and confident is the moment that he can kill pretty much anybody at this level. The numbers so far through Kickoff only exemplify that. So while SR does double up in numbers, the defuse kit will need to be retrieved. DZ have a really tough task ahead of them. And while they've got some firepower on their side, so too does SR. Ambi is still very much upright, as is Spoit. Rexon, though, has been the star of this round, finding 3 kills. And 4 players on Shopify Rebellion will be eager to finish off Newers. Situated over by White. A run up from the Malusi, and Ambi says, I'll take number 18, thank you very much. Ambi's kill count, old enough to vote, as SR takes the round, and we have a tie game yet again. 5-5, Jesse, means we're going all the way in regulation.
I think that's what we've been waiting for to see from SR on the defense. Their attacks were so successful because they were able to set the pace. They were able to get in and force those gunfights on their own terms. It took a while, but with a great peek from Spoit and then a run out from Rexon, Shopify Rebellion have been able to set the terms again. They've been able to choose when they want to go for those gunfights, and it's working in their favor. Rexon going for that jump out of white window for the massive pick that he got onto NJR was a really brilliant move. It was orchestrated by a Canadian who was playing inside of reading. He was using that pulse scanner. He called for the jump out from Rexon, and it really just started that whole round off on the right foot for Shopify Rebellion. Rexon, of course, you saw it, rotates back into white, ends with a triple on the round. It's beautifully played by him. Spoit and Ambi pick up 1 apiece, and it's a 5-5 tied game on Cafe.
10 seconds.
Did we expect anything different between these two teams? I mean, Clubhouse won 7-3 by DZ despite being picked by Shopify Rebellion. Order won 7-3 by Shopify Rebellion despite being picked by DZ. And now here on Cafe Dostoyevsky, after watching DarkZero struggle on this map, but ultimately persevere against Space Station back in our very first match that feels like it was on another day entirely, we've had 3 very long best-of-3s so far, but hey, it's the final day of NAL Kickoff. We abide by these teams and their pacing. But now, even, dead even. And no matter what happens, my favorite round is up next, because the winner here moves to series point.
Spoit got some early damage onto Kino with a spawn peek to start this round, and I think that kind of signifies what the game plan is for Shopify Rebellion. They want to keep this pace up. They want to continue to play aggressive. Canadians sticking this pulse for the 2nd round in a row. That can make all the difference in enabling these aggressive plays. The C4 tossed by Rexon, guided by Canadian, but it's Ambi who strikes instead. A flurry of kills here on the mid floor as DarkZero start to make their advance in up above. It ends up being 3 players down the side of Shopify Rebellion. Canadian all alone as Ambi gets down to 1v4 for Troy.
On pulse on this map. Ambi within reach, but Fultz is from above. The former teammate, he and Canadian won a world championship together, but there is no love lost between them whatsoever as Fultz propels DarkZero to series point.
And again, Parker, it comes back to the pacing, doesn't it? It's Shopify Rebellion who are trying to take the pace away from DZ, but as long as DarkZero are in control of these early rounds, as long as they can explode into the site, explode up above onto that top floor before SR can really get a handle on what's going on, they're walking away with these round wins. They will take a 6-5 lead here on Cafe. It's been an explosive Cafe, probably the single fastest pace map I have ever casted. I don't know if you'd agree with that. We've gone deep into the rounds, Parker, but it just feels like every single round action could break out at any moment.
Yeah, I mean, this has been making up for lost time, frankly. You know, when we get the call times, we schedule about 3-ish hours per series. If it goes neatly, usually 2, 5, and 8 p.m. are your start times Eastern.
10 seconds remaining.
We are 7 minutes away from midnight right now, so this play day might actually stretch to 2 separate days here on the East Coast. If you're even farther east and you're in the Atlantic time zone in Canada, if you live in Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador, it's already another day for you. Of course, it's already another day if you're in Europe too, but we are in North America, so let's talk about that. But yeah, a very, very fast series. Opening duels have been happening in the 2s for most of this map. The first opening kill happened in 13 seconds in round number 1. In round number 2, it took 58 seconds. In round 4, it took 30 seconds. In round 6, it took 16 seconds for the first blood to be spilled. These are crazy numbers. So far, 3/4 of the opening duels have occurred in less than a minute. We are still in that proximity right now, 15 seconds until we hit the 2 minute or the 1 minute off the clock mark. But yeah, this has been a very fast Cafe.
It's not going to slow down, Parker. It feels like there's just about to get started on the side of DarkZero. Newers has taken up so much space here, walking up the brown stairs. They're not going to be aware how quickly he's gotten here, but look at this information. Not on the pulse this time, but Canadian still guiding something for his teams. He's hacked one of these drones and has spotted out faults on the red stairs, almost blending in with this drone. They might not recognize that it is being driven by the defense. And yes, here comes the track at the last second. Faults gets the read onto this player roaming. They will take down that flank. It's all going DZ.
There goes the house of cards. So long setting them up, and DZ just knocks them all down. Ambi will break 20 kills and will now need to ace clutch, as he's the only player to get a kill this round, and he's the only one left on SR. His job will get way more difficult as the death mark goes out. Live tracking as DZ gets the defuse kid down, and Kino will send us away. 7-5 for DarkZero as they topple Shopify Rebellion in our final match of the kickoff.